Chapter 3574. Hearing Xiaohua's words, Xian Songzi could only helplessly reply. Therefore, this poor Taoist's current plan can only be to scatter my nascent soul. And when there's a chance in the future, I'll think about taking over the body. Since there is a path, there is an end. Fellow Taoist Xian Songzi, if you cultivate scattered nascent soul and scattered immortal, I will definitely support you no matter how difficult it is. Xiaohua looked at Xian Songzi and said word by word. But if you take over, I may not. Xiaohua didn't say anything more. He believed that Xian Songzi would understand his meaning. Xian Songzi didn't know where Xiaohua's confidence came from, but he was inexplicably moved. He cupped his hands and said, I don't dare to have extravagant hopes for the future. I only want to get through the current difficulties first. That's true. Take one step at a time. You don't have to worry too much about the future. Xiaohua knew that Xian Songzi's mood wasn't good right now, so he didn't want to comfort him. He just casually said some words. Unexpectedly, Xian Songzi said seriously, Taoist Master Xiao, you don't know all of this is the will of the heavens. Will of the heavens? Xiaohua was stunned. He was somewhat baffled. As early as 600 years ago, Xian Songzi's tone was somewhat aged, his gaze looking towards the clouds in front of the flying carriage as if he was reminiscing. I had just cultivated to gold core. In order to find a suitable cultivation method, I killed many Taoist cultivators. In the end, I finally obtained a cultivation method suitable for I from an unknown cultivator. And in this cultivator's small Qianquan pouch, I also obtained an incomplete ink cloud pupil. What was recorded inside was the cultivation method for scattered immortals. There was also a so-called scattered nascent soul cultivation method. It must be the cultivation experience of some scattered immortal senior. Speaking up to here, Xian Songzi was silent for a moment, then continued. At that time, I felt that this secret technique was really inconceivable. And this thing was really boring, so I almost threw it away. But thinking that it was left behind by a scattered immortal senior, it could be considered precious, and I had never heard of scattered immortals before, I kept it. I didn't expect that the cause from 600 years ago would actually bear fruit today. No wonder you know about scattered immortals. Xiaohua sighed again. Taoist has actually obtained this ink cloud pupil. When fellow Taoist brought it up today, this Xiao still feels that I'm ignorant and inexperienced. Bodiless immortals are called immortals, but they actually live miserable lives. They live in fear every day, afraid that the heavenly tribulation will descend. That's why they do everything they can to find a way to avoid the tribulation, and a way to deal with it. There are very few of them in the first place, so how can they appear in front of people? Xian Songzi nodded. Even if I knew about this, I've never seen a bodiless immortal before. And I've never heard anyone mention it. Xiaohua pinched his chin and said, That's right, according to what I know. As long as one can't pass the heavenly tribulation, no matter if it's the physical body or the nascent soul, both will turn into ashes. It's unlikely that the nascent soul will be tougher than the physical body and be able to escape the heavenly tribulation. There's always a way out. There's always an exception. Xian Songzi smiled. 10,000 years later, I'll show you this exception. Good, this Xiao will wait and see. Xiaohua said with a smile. I wonder how this Xiao can help you now. Tell me about it. That Mo Yuntong is in I's Qianquan bag. If you killed that bastard Xian Yanming, Mo Yuntong must be in your hands. Xian Songzi smiled and said. Moreover, I's natal magic treasure, the Hanging Mountain Pagoda, should also be in your hands. Now that I can't stay outside for long, I can only rely on the Hanging Mountain Pagoda to survive. Oh, I understand. Xiaohua waved his hand and took out Xian Yanming's Qianquan bag. He handed it to Xian Songzi and said, It should all be inside. Take it yourself. Taoist Xian Songzi smiled bitterly. Now that I don't have the strength to truss a chicken, I have to rely on Taoist for everything. Even that nascent soul cultivation secret technique needs Taoist to pass on to me. Oh, this Xiao understands. Xiaohua suddenly understood. He knew that when Xian Songzi lost his physical body, he couldn't cultivate any divine abilities. He really had to rely on Xiaohua to pass on these secret techniques to him first. Therefore, Xiaohua didn't hesitate. He first looked for Xian Songzi's magic treasure, and gave it to Xian-Song-Zi. Xian-Song-Zi hugged the small pagoda with both hands, and his nascent soul flashed with light and faint magic power fluctuations. When the small pagoda also fluctuated, the small pagoda slowly shrank and fell into the nascent soul's hands. Only then did the vigilance on Xian-Song-Zi's face, which had never disappeared, slightly relax. Then, Xiaohua looked for Xian-Song-Zi's shabby Mo Yuntong. Fortunately, although there were many things in Xian Yanming's Qianquan pouch and Xian-Song-Zi didn't care about the Mo Yuntong before, Xian Yanming had just obtained it from Xian-Song-Zi. Xian Yanming didn't have time to deal with it, so Xiaohua only spent a little effort to find it. After obtaining Xian-Song-Zi's consent again, Xiaohua placed the Mo Yuntong on his forehead and carefully looked at it. Then he stretched out his hand and a faint crystal thread appeared on his index finger. He touched the forehead of Xian-Song-Zi's nascent soul. Xian-Song-Zi's nascent soul rapidly trembled, unable to withstand the power of Xiaohua's touch. Xiaohua was helpless. He could only pass on less than 30% of the Mo Yuntong's contents, which were suitable for Xian-Song-Zi's current situation. Even so, Xian-Song-Zi's expression became dispirited after reading this, and the luster of his nascent soul dimmed again. Fellow Taoist Xian-Song Xiaohua frowned and said, "Now you need to cultivate. This Xiao has also seen the contents of the Mo Yuntong. This Xiao will do his best to find suitable spiritual herbs and spiritual items for you, so that you can continue to cultivate. However, the spiritual items you need are really rare. To tell you the truth, this Xiao has never heard of them before. This Xiao doesn't dare to guarantee. Taoist Xiao, thank you for your trouble." Xian-Song-Zi was really out of breath. He said in a low voice, "Those things are called ancient things. Perhaps they have changed their names after being passed down. Unfortunately, there are no diagrams. I will leave everything to Taoist Xiao. Now, I will enter the suspended mountain pagoda to cultivate. If Taoist Xiao has any news or any errands, you can take out the suspended mountain pagoda." Yes, fellow Taoist Xian-Song can rest assured. This Xiao's luck has always been very good. Perhaps I will be able to find the items that fellow Taoist needs very soon. Xiaohua said with a smile. Fellow Taoists can rest assured and cultivate in seclusion. Many thanks, many thanks. At this time, no amount of gratitude was enough. Xian-Song-Zi said a few words. His entire yuanying flashed with an earthen yellow brilliance, causing the suspended mountain pagoda to also shine brightly. Soon after, the yuanying slowly fell into the suspended mountain pagoda and disappeared. Sigh, Xiaohua looked at the suspended mountain pagoda in front of him that had lost its brilliance and fell onto the flying carriage. He secretly sighed. A yuanying cultivator who had cultivated for more than 1,000 years had fallen into such a state in just one day. It really made one's heart cold. Xiaohua was worried about Xian-Song-Zi's mood, so he didn't ask about Xian-Song-Zi's origin. Because he was worried about the condition of Xian-Song-Zi's yuanying, Xiaohua didn't ask about the situation of the Jade Pavilion gathering. The suspended mountain pagoda couldn't be put into the space. Xiaohua carefully put it into his Qianquan bag. Then, without caring about the Pegasus, he clapped his hand and took the Mo Yuntong in his hand. He placed it on his forehead and carefully examined it. In fact, as early as when Xian-Song-Zi talked about the cultivation method of loose immortals, Xiaohua's heart was moved. This cultivation method was very similar to his current yuanying cultivation method. Now, Xiaohua's yuanying was growing vigorously under the bombardment of the 5 qi righteous thunders. Wasn't it the same as a loose immortal increasing immortal spiritual force through the lightning tribulation? However, Xiaohua's 5 qi righteous thunders didn't release immortal spiritual force. Moreover, the 5 qi righteous thunders were also under Xiaohua's control, so they wouldn't be a threat to yuanying. In fact, Xiaohua still didn't understand why the 5 qi righteous thunders could promote the growth of yuanying. Could it be because the 5 qi righteous thunders were an item of the immortal palace and contained immortal spiritual force? But no matter how he thought about it, there was a problem. The immortal palace wasn't the immortal world, and the immortal palace of a Confucian cultivator wasn't the immortal palace of a Taoist sect. Of course, since Xian-Song-Zi's yuanying could cultivate a loose immortal soul, Then the two Yuanying without primordial spirits that Xiaohua obtained could also cultivate a loose immortal soul under the support of the green-robed Xiaohua and the other primordial spirits. This temptation made Xiaohua's heart pound. However, after looking at it for a moment, several divine senses swept over the flying carriage, which attracted Xiaohua's attention again. Xiaohua thought for a moment, then threw Mo Yuntong to Dragon Vein Xiaohua to take a look. He stood up, put his hands behind his back, and looked in the direction where the divine senses swept over. The direction where the divine senses swept over wasn't where the Jade Pavilion was, but where Xiaohua was about 100 miles away. After Xiaohua let the heavenly horse slow down its flying speed, in just the time it took to eat a meal, 3 cultivators wearing Taoist robes came over. The one in front was an old man with white hair and a beard. Below him was a pigeon-like bird, but this pigeon was about 2 zhang in size. The pigeon's face looked fierce, and when its wings flapped, it set off a powerful airflow. This old man had a red face, a pair of broom-like eyebrows and leopard-shaped eyes. He looked majestic without being angry, which was quite a match for the bird below him. The 2 cultivators behind the old man were slightly younger, but their hair was also white, and their eyebrows were quite weathered. One of them was on a flying boat, and the other was on a flying sword. Although their faces were not very fierce, there was also a kind of powerful momentum in their eyes. It seemed that the 3 of them were not ordinary people. Fellow Taoist, although the 3 of them had already scanned Xiaohua with their divine senses, now that they really saw Xiaohua, they saw that Xiaohua was so young, and they couldn't see Xiaohua's strength even when using spells. They couldn't help but look at each other. The person in front hurriedly stood up from the back of the pigeon, cupped his hands and said, "I'm Changyu of Qingzhou Qingyan Ridge. I wonder if you are going to the Jade Pavilion meeting?" Xiaohua naturally returned the salute and said with a smile, "I'm Xiaohua of Black Cloud Ridge in Yuzhou, and I'm going to the Jade Pavilion meeting." Could it be that the 3 of you are also going to the Jade Pavilion meeting? Haha, yes, that's right. Hearing this, Changyu raised his thick eyebrows and laughed. It's better to meet by chance than by invitation. We are really fated. That Xiaohua said with a smile. Now that we are close to the Jade Pavilion, if the cultivators we meet are not going to the Jade Pavilion meeting, that would be strange. Chapter 3575. Come, Changyu seemed to be very straightforward. He pointed to the 2 people behind him and said, "These are the 2 fellow Taoists I met on the way. The 4 of us are going to the Jade Pavilion together. It's really lively. I'm Zhu Chengli from Yangzhou Ruins Hu Mountain. Greetings to fellow Taoist Xiao." The person on the flying boat also had a smile on his face. The person on the flying sword next to him, although he looked a little unwilling, reluctantly cupped his hands and said, "I'm Wu Tianxin from Yangzhou's Panshan Cave." Hee. I'm very happy to see you 2 fellow Taoists. Xiaohua smiled and cupped his hands, not because their cultivation was low. Ignore old Wu's dead face. Changyu looked at Wu Tianxin's appearance and didn't find it strange. He said to Xiaohua, "When you saw me before, he was also like that. Later, I heard from other fellow Taoists that he was originally like this. I don't know how many fellow Taoists he offended, but he didn't change. It's no wonder fellow Taoist Wu is like this." Zhu Chengli hastily explained. He didn't intend to participate in the Jade Pavilion gathering. However, I've encountered a bottleneck in my cultivation. It just so happens that a small country wants me to stand up for them, so I dragged fellow Taoist Wu to the Jade Pavilion. Xiaohua smiled, touched his nose and said, "It seems. I've never said that I care, right? Everyone has their own nature. As long as they don't hinder others, it's fine. Previously, when I saw the 3 of you aggressively chasing after me, I thought you 3 fellow Taoists had bad intentions. Now that I see you 3 fellow Taoists being so friendly, I've just calmed down. How could I care?" Changyu smiled embarrassedly. He didn't seem to be embarrassed. Presumably, he didn't have any dirty thoughts before. He looked at the Pegasus in front of Xiaohua and said, "Even if we have some plans, seeing that fellow Taoist Xiao dares to ride such a Pegasus, you should think about it in your heart, right? Besides, on the hidden immortal continent, our Tao sect has declined and is suppressed by Confucian cultivators. Even if we want to rule a country, We have to come to the Jade Pavilion to give face to Confucian cultivators. In this case, even if I can take fellow Taoist Pegasus, so what? Wouldn't it be better to directly kill a Confucian cultivator? Haha, fellow Taoist Chang is rather straightforward. Xiaohua laughed. Humph, all you know is fighting and killing. Wu Tianxin said coldly. You kill me, I kill you. Sooner or later, both sides will suffer. The more I walk, the more scared I am. Fellow Taoists, listen to me. This Jade Pavilion gathering is definitely not a place to be taken lightly. While we haven't entered yet, we'd better get out of here as soon as possible. Old Wu. Changyu was not surprised. It seemed that he had heard these words several times. He turned back and said, You are already in the middle stage of the Gold Core realm. If you want to enter the late stage of the Gold Core realm, have you prepared all the spiritual herbs and medicinal pills you need? I've already reached the bottleneck of the late Gold Core stage, but I've only prepared less than 30% of the things needed to conceive a nascent soul. If this goes on, I won't be able to conceive a baby within my lifespan. Instead of waiting for death like this, why don't I go to the Yaotai Palace and fight? Fellow Taoist Wu, Senior Chang is right. Aren't you in an awkward situation now? Those spiritual herbs are useless for the cultivation of Confucian cultivators, but they have the spiritual herbs in their hands. Even if they ask great alchemists to refine them into ordinary medicines, they won't give them to us. If we don't have the support of a country and recruit disciples as the state preceptor, how can our cultivation progress further? If we take 10,000 steps back and die, won't we have no disciples at all? How can the inheritance of our Taoism continue? Zhu Qingli and the other two obviously argued a lot on the way, and today they argued again. It's easy for you and me to leave today, but maybe we'll have to come here again 10 years later. 10 years, these 10 years are nothing in our eyes. Maybe fellow Taoist Wu doesn't care, but in Senior Chang's eyes, these 10 years are a matter of life and death. How can he have 10 more years? If Senior Chang is like this, who knows when we'll be like this? Therefore, we should cherish every day and night on the road of cultivation. Do you think I don't know? Wu Tianxin rolled his eyes and said, I don't want to come to the Jade Pavilion because I want to save time for cultivation, right? Without elixirs and primordial stones, what can you do even if you have time? Changyu said with a smile. Facing Changyu, Wu Tianxin didn't dare to be as merciless as he was to Zhu Qingli. He could only smile bitterly and said, I don't think we can get anything more when we arrive at the Jade Pavilion. There's obviously a dark shadow in this Jade Pavilion gathering. What right do Taoist cultivators have to tell us what to do? Not to mention that a single state preceptor's lot can lead several Taoist cultivators to fight each other. Even if Taoist cultivators want the approval of Confucian cultivators to become state preceptors, we can see that Confucian cultivators are harboring evil intentions. Fellow Taoist Wu, you think too much. Zhu Qingli obviously didn't agree with Wu Tianxin's thoughts. He shook his head and said, The Jade Pavilion gathering has existed for many years in the hidden immortal continent, and many Taoist cultivators have become state preceptors. If there's a dark shadow, why don't others say it? Look at Senior Chang. Isn't he only willing to come to the Jade Pavilion gathering because the monarch of a country begged Senior Chang to become his disciple? In my opinion, there's nothing in this world that isn't a secret. Even if there are some secrets in the Jade Pavilion gathering, it's normal. Actually, if fellow Taoist Wu doesn't want to participate in the Jade Pavilion gathering, you can find a Taoist country and cultivate under the state preceptor. It's also possible. Xiaohua's heart moved, and he interrupted. Wu Tianxin curled his lips and said self-deprecatingly, With my temper, how can I please others? Since I can't be their direct disciple, it's better for me to cultivate on my own. Forget it, let's not talk about it anymore, Changyu said with a smile. The four of us met for a reason. I don't know who will get the state preceptor's lot, but I can guarantee that as long as I can take charge of a country, I can ask the three of you to come out and help. Hee, thank you so much, Senior Chang. Zhu Qingli was very happy. He cupped his hands and thanked him. As for Xiaohua and Wu Tianxin, they both smiled and didn't say much. Let's go, Xiaohua said with a smile. I still have the same words. Everyone has their own thoughts, and everyone has their own fate. No one can force anyone. Since we've come to the edge of the Jade Pavilion, we'd better go and take a look first. No matter what, this is a real grand meeting of our Taoist sect. Yes, even if fellow Taoist Wu doesn't want to go in, it's possible to find things for cultivation. Zhu Qingli nodded again and again. Xiao Hua was stunned and asked curiously, "Fellow Taoists, do you mean that there are still auctions in the Jade Pavilion gathering? Why haven't I heard of it?" "It's not to the extent of auctions," Chang Yu said with a smile. "I've heard that there are some ordinary exchanges, which have gradually started in the past 200 years. After all, our Taoist sect cultivators are in the minority. In the ordinary auctions in the hidden immortal continent, our Taoist sect cultivators use very few things. Now that we have a rare opportunity to gather together, each of us must have something that others want but we don't need." Not bad, not bad. Xiao Hua smiled. Wasn't this the small trade gathering in the Morning Rain continent? It was exactly the opportunity he liked. The Jade Pavilion was a mountain, and an extremely high mountain peak. However, the mountain range around the Jade Pavilion mountain was extremely vast. At a glance, it was thousands of miles and tens of thousands of miles. It was several times larger than the territory of an ordinary country in the hidden immortal continent. However, as the ancients said, the mountain was famous not because of its height, but because of its immortal. The water was famous not because of its depth, but because of its dragon. Although the Jade Pavilion mountain was only a mountain peak, this mountain peak represented the mountain range that stretched for tens of thousands of miles. In front of the Jade Pavilion mountain, the entire mountain range had no other name. However, even though the Jade Pavilion gathering was called the Jade Pavilion, it was also a grand meeting where Taoist sect cultivators gathered. However, the place where the imperial tutor's lot was truly obtained was not the Jade Pavilion mountain. After the Jade Pavilion mountain, within the endless mountain range, there seemed to be no place where the imperial tutor's selection was not held. The entire mountain range was a place where Star-Lord Hall could freely display their abilities. 10 years ago, the selection competition might be held in a river. This year, it could be held in an ancient tree on the mountain peak. 10 years later, it could also be held in an inconspicuous cave. As for where it would be held 20 years later, it would depend on Star-Lord Hall's interest. Not only was the location of the selection different, even the selection method was not the same. Sometimes, a Taoist sect cultivator would sign up within a set time. Then, Star-Lord Hall would randomly group these cultivators together. In the end, some cultivators who won would obtain the imperial tutor's lot. Sometimes, all the Taoist sect cultivators would be divided into several groups. Every group would produce the imperial tutor's lot. There were even times when Star-Lord Hall did not choose the first few winners. Instead, they would first determine the rankings of the cultivators, and then randomly draw a number. Whichever number was drawn, the corresponding cultivator would obtain the imperial tutor's lot. In particular, the number of the imperial tutor's lot in each Yaotai meeting was not always certain. Sometimes it was dozens, sometimes it was hundreds, and so on. Of course, among the many variables in the Yaotai meeting, there was one that was eternal. That was, no matter how the cultivators who entered the Yaotai meeting died, no one would care. In short, the Yaotai meeting was the rhythm of Star-Lord Hall using all the methods in the entire mountain range, and using the imperial tutor's lot as bait to kill the Taoist sect cultivators who participated in the Yaotai meeting. But even so, whether it was those who could see the essence or those who could not see the essence, or those who had a plan in their heart, or those who had a fluke in their heart, the Tao sect cultivators of the 9 regions of the hidden immortal continent still appeared in the vicinity of Yaotai Mountain like carps crossing the river. How could Xiao Hua not be one of them? Xiao Hua, Chang Yu and the others flew like this for a few days. After exchanging what they knew, they finally understood why Immortal Li Xiang did not tell them the specific situation of the Yaotai meeting. Because everything could not be used as reference, and all the experiences could be the cause of death. Only in the Yaotai meeting it was really wise to deal with all changes by sticking to the status quo. Chapter 3576. As for Chang Yu and the other two, they were even more shocked. Although the past few days had not been long, and they were still unable to see through Xiao Hua's cultivation, Wu Tianxin had inadvertently asked a few difficult questions about cultivation. He had originally wanted to ask Changyu for advice, but before Changyu could finish, Xiaohua had mercilessly refuted him. Changyu was naturally unconvinced and brought out a few of his doubts to discuss. In the end, Xiaohua did not have too many reservations and answered them in detail. So much so that other than Xiaohua asking about the situation of the Jade Pavilion gathering and the situation of Qingzhou and Yangzhou, the three of them took turns to ask Xiaohua for advice most of the time. In the distance, a bluestone mountain stood between heaven and earth like a jade tablet. The edge of the bluestone mountain was an undulating mountain range. The three of them were already incomparably respectful to Xiaohua. Seeing Xiaohua put away the Pegasus and flying chariot, the three of them hurriedly jumped down from the flying beast and flying boat. They put away their flying tools and stood respectfully beside Xiaohua. Looking at the Yaotai Mountain, Xiaohua could not help but be somewhat stunned. Previously, he had not released his divine perception to explore the Yaotai Mountain, so he did not know what they were feeling this time. However, what surprised him was not the Yaotai Mountain, but the area under the Yaotai Mountain. There were tents everywhere, and around these tents, there were many soldiers and generals in bright armor. The armors of these generals were different, and the military flags around the tents were also different. It was obvious that they were not of the same standard. Seeing Xiaohua's somewhat surprised expression, Changyu hurriedly said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, the vicinity of the Yaotai Mountain has been blocked by Confucian cultivators using a defensive formation. You cannot use your divine perception to explore. There are even some places that have counterattacks. Fellow Taoist, please do not forcibly break the formation." Changyu's tone was very respectful. Although he did not call Xiaohua senior, it was no different from facing a senior. No, Xiaohua smiled and pointed at the tents. "This Xiao is wondering why there are so many soldiers." "Oh, fellow Taoist," Xiao Zhuchengli also said. "These are not the soldiers of Star-Lord Palace, nor are they arranged by any Confucian cultivator. These are all sent by various countries. Even many monarchs will come personally. Their goal is to recruit our Taoist cultivators." Some didn't have a big appetite. Whether it was those who participated in the Yaotai meeting or Taoist cultivators who came to watch the fun, as long as they met their requirements, they could get their offerings. Some came for the cultivators who got the imperial preceptor's lot. Of course, these countries should be established by Taoist cultivators. On the other hand, the former might have been founded by Confucian cultivators. These monarchs are just recruiting our Taoism cultivators to be their hired thugs. If they are sincere, why would they appear here? Wu Tianxin still spoke in an unsociable manner. No matter what, their presence here represents their attitude, Changyu said unhappily. Moreover, their arrival can at least allow some Tao sect cultivators with shallow cultivation to have a place to stay. Old Wu, don't always look at things from the bad side. Xiaohua smiled and said, "This Yaotai gathering is getting more and more interesting. Indeed, I've heard people talking about it before, but I didn't pay much attention to it. Now it seems that I've come a little late." Changyu nodded. "If I had come in the past, I might have encountered some opportunities. Maybe we won't be able to go back," Xiaohua faintly reminded. "Oh, this can't be right?" Changyu was stunned. "I've never heard of Taoism cultivators who don't participate in the Yaotai gathering disappearing for no reason. If Taoism cultivators who disappear can send messages, can they be called disappearing?" Wu Tianxin replied with a somewhat sarcastic tone. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, you're thinking too much," Changyu said embarrassedly. "Even if the Confucian cultivators have such a plan, I'm afraid they won't really do it. Otherwise, who would come to the Yaotai gathering?" Xiaohua shrugged his shoulders, pointed to the sky, pointed to the ground, and pointed to the mountain peak. He said with a smile, "Heaven knows, earth knows, Yaotai Mountain knows, but we Taoism cultivators don't know." Changyu wanted to say something again, but he saw a flying boat breaking through the sky from afar. A middle-aged Taoism cultivator was standing on it. So Changyu closed his mouth and stood in the air waiting. In just a moment, the flying boat approached. Everyone could clearly see that the person on the flying boat was actually a cultivator of the second stage of Yuanli. When the cultivator saw the four people, he immediately bowed and said, "Junior greets the four seniors." When Xiaohua and the others saw that this cultivator didn't report his name and flew from the direction of Yaotai Mountain, they already understood something. Changyu raised his hand and said with a smile, "No need to be so polite. Are you the reception envoy for the Yaotai gathering?" "Senior, there is no reception envoy for the Yaotai gathering this time. Junior is only here to give you the tokens to enter the Yaotai Mountain. As for the matter of entering the Yaotai Mountain in 10 days, Senior, please do as you please." As the cultivator spoke, he took out 4 bamboo slips from his bosom and respectfully presented them in front of the 4 people. Xiaohua and the others took them and scanned them with their divine senses. They couldn't see anything special about these bamboo slips. Changyu hurriedly stopped the cultivator, who turned around and asked, "I want to ask you, since there is no reception envoy, how can we enter the Yaotai Mountain? Where can we wait for these 10 days? As far as I know, at the foot of the Yaotai Mountain, there have always been quiet rooms and caves for the cultivators who come to participate in the Yaotai gathering to rest." Who would have thought that the cultivator himself was completely clueless? He smiled bitterly and said, "Senior, this junior really doesn't know. This junior is in charge of everything within sight. Whenever a senior comes, this junior will hand over the token and not ask about anything else. If senior knows where there is a quiet room, senior can go." "Forget it, you can go." Changyu naturally wouldn't make things difficult for a junior with second-level essence force. He smiled and waved his hand to indicate that cultivator to go. Only then did he turn around and say to Xiaohua, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, this time's Yaotai gathering is really loose. Previously, early gold core stage cultivators weren't allowed to enter the Yaotai Mountain, and this disciple is only at the heartbeat stage. The seniors he mentioned even include spirit tranquil stage disciples. Could it be that this time's Yaotai gathering has more lots for the state preceptor than before? If there are more, won't fellow Taoist Chang be happy?" Xiaohua said with a smile. "Fellow Taoist Chang will also have the opportunity to get the state preceptor's lot and become the state preceptor." Not at all, Changyu said with a smile. "I only came to try my luck. Fellow Taoist Xiao is the one who is truly confident." Xiaohua smiled and looked around. He said, "Since there's no restriction on where we can rest, we can just find a place to rest." Fellow Taoist Xiao doesn't know, Changyu explained. During the Yaotai gathering, although Star-Lord Hall didn't send any disciples to maintain order, there won't be any Confucian cultivators near the Yaotai Mountain. After all, this is Star-Lord Hall's face. If we're too far away from the Yaotai Mountain, it might not be safe. Therefore, I think it's better to go to the bottom of the Yaotai Mountain first. Moreover, it's rare for us Tao disciples to gather together. If we're close, won't we be able to move around more? I don't care. I'll listen to fellow Taoist Chang. Xiaohua had always been casual about this kind of matter and nodded in agreement. Xiaohua naturally knew about the dangers near the Yaotai Mountain. Even someone as strong as Xian Songzi had lost his physical body. Changyu and the others were simply no match for them. Wu Tianxin and Zhu Qingli naturally didn't have any objections. The 3 of them followed Changyu and slowly descended to the foot of the Yaotai Mountain. Before the 4 of them arrived, Tao cultivators flew out from the numerous tents surrounding the Yaotai Mountain. However, these cultivators seemed to have a tacit understanding. The ones who flew out first directly flew in front of Xiaohua and the others. Moreover, the ones who were a few steps slower waited in midair. "Seniors, please." The one who rushed out first was a short cultivator at the 2nd grade of origin power. When this cultivator arrived in front of Changyu, he immediately bowed and said, "I was sent by the state preceptor of Yongzhou's Fian Kingdom. I'm here to respectfully wait for Senior. I wonder if Senior is interested in accepting the offerings of my Fian Kingdom?" The offerings of my Fian Kingdom. As he spoke, that cultivator very familiarly read out a long list of conditions. Then he looked at Xiaohua and the others with a smile. Changyu smiled and cupped his hands, saying, "Thank your state preceptor on behalf of I. We're here to participate in the Yaotai gathering. Everything can wait until after the Yaotai gathering." "Alright, Junior understands. This is my Fian Kingdom's token. If Senior is interested, you can use this token to come to my Fian Kingdom." That cultivator didn't say anything else. He respectfully took out 4 swallow-like tokens from his bosom and handed them to Xiaohua and the others. Xiaohua smiled and extended his hand to receive them. Changyu and the others could only accept them. Then that cultivator cupped his hands again and flew down. It didn't matter that Xiaohua accepted the Fian Kingdom's tokens. Then that cultivator who was waiting in midair stepped forward. This cultivator seemed to have heard Changyu's words. Without wasting any time, he took out a ring-shaped token and handed it to Xiaohua and the others. He respectfully said, "The offerings of my Fian Kingdom are all written in the token. Seniors, you'll know at a glance. Junior respectfully awaits senior's arrival." After saying that, he flew down without any hesitation. Next, Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Dozens of cultivators handed over their tokens one after another. Xiaohua somewhat refused, but when he saw that those cultivators were also eager, he didn't have the nerve to put down his face and could only accept them. Fortunately, a few other Taoist cultivators flew over from other places. The remaining cultivators wanted to be in the front, so they hurriedly handed over their tokens to the 4 people and hurriedly flew to the others. Looking at the strange token in his hand and thinking about the large pile of tokens in the small Qingquan bag, Xiaohua's expression was extremely wonderful. This Yaotai gathering hadn't started yet. He hadn't even set foot on Yaotai Mountain yet, but his harvest was already so full. This really made Xiaohua feel embarrassed. Fellow Taoist Xiao Changyu couldn't help but laugh. He didn't blame him and said, "You're too soft-hearted. These countries, you definitely won't go. These tokens are trash. If you refuse at the beginning, the rest of the people may not necessarily follow. Look at those people, they're simply disdainful of these people." The Cultivator's Eternal Legend. Chapter 3577. As Changyu spoke, he pointed at the cultivators who arrived later than them. Sure enough, as Changyu said, those cultivators waved their hands and flew away without waiting for the low-level cultivators of the various countries to speak. Some of them even waved their hands, and a gust of wind blew those low-level cultivators away. Xiaohua helplessly touched his forehead and said with a smile, "I'm not soft-hearted, but seeing that we're all Dao sect disciples, I have to be a little lenient." Haha. Wu Tianxin let out a rare laugh and looked at Xiaohua with interest. Isn't fellow Taoist Xiao being soft-hearted? Although these so-called Dao sect cultivators wear the clothing of Dao sect cultivators, their hearts are already Confucian cultivators. They are even Dao sect lackeys cultivated by the various Confucian countries. Perhaps. Xiaohua smiled. In fact, not to mention Dao sect cultivators, even if a few Confucian scholars came over with tokens with smiles on their faces, with Xiaohua's temperament, he might not necessarily refuse. It was just a matter of taking a few more tokens and listening to a few more nonsense words in the air. It was just a small effort. While they were talking, the few Dao sect cultivators behind them passed through the many tents and barracks and flew into Yaotai Mountain. Those low-level cultivators who were recruiting talents didn't seem to be dejected, and flew back to their respective barracks, as if they had completed their mission. At the side of a small tent, a man in armor looked at Xiaohua in disbelief. There was some hesitation and confusion between his brows, as if he knew Xiaohua. He seemed to want to go over, but at the same time he seemed to be thinking about something. Zhu Chengli thought differently from the others. With a smile he said, "When we are waiting for gold core cultivators, those monarchs only sent low-level Dao League disciples to talk to us. If there are nascent soul cultivators here, I suppose the monarchs of various nations will come personally?" Changyu waved his hand and motioned for Xiaohua and the others to fly down with him. At the same time he said, "If fellow Taoists are nascent soul seniors, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. For nascent soul seniors to come here, they must have a plan, and it's unlikely that they will be persuaded by these country lords. Moreover, if these country lords really want to invite nascent soul seniors to be state preceptors, they will have to wait until after the Yaotai conference." After flying past the continuous stretch of tents, they were already close to Yaotai Mountain. However, the scenery of Yaotai Mountain changed once again. The bluestone mountain from before began to become clear. The various sceneries on the mountain were rather eye-catching. There were relaxed green cypresses, waterfalls and small ponds, mountain paths, and even some immortal birds and ferocious beasts spreading their wings and leaping in the forest. However, after flying for a while, the scene gradually blurred. Layers of clouds began to appear in the sky. In the end, the entire Yaotai mountain was covered by a layer of red clouds. Even the mountain range behind the Yaotai mountain was connected to the entire sky, tightly covered by the red clouds. Not to mention that the clouds looked like ripples on water to the naked eye. Even divine sense was reflected by the layer of clouds. It was impossible to see the true appearance of the Yaotai mountain. Confucian cultivators are so generous? He actually set up a defensive formation over the entire Yaotai mountain range? Xiaohua was somewhat aghast. However, after thinking about it, he understood. This Yaotai conference had been held for who knows how many years. Even if they set up a formation over several kilometers, it should have been completely covered over these years. Under the heavy pressure of the clouds, only a large area at the foot of the Yaotai mountain could be seen. On this foothill, there were some palaces and some caves. Some of the palaces flickered with splendor, while some of the palaces were completely dark. The caves were the same. Occasionally, cultivators would fly out of the caves. These cultivators would either go to the palaces at the side or fly to a large plain at the foot of the mountain. On this plain, there were numerous pavilions that were less than a dozen feet in size. These pavilions had the same style. They were all square and appeared ordinary. However, they were all built with bluestone. They had doors and windows. Similarly, some of these pavilions were suffused with a bluestone splendor. Lines of talisman characters flickered within the splendor, while others were completely dull. Between the pavilions, there were some commonly seen spiritual trees. Some of them were blooming flowers, some bore fruits, and a strong fragrance assailed the nostrils. Fellow Taoist Xiao Changyu saw that Xiaohua only raised his head to look at the clouds and didn't care about those pavilions and palaces. He reminded in a low voice, "We want to find a suitable quiet room to rest. Do you think we should live together? Or do we cultivate separately? Oh, the palaces at the foot of the mountain are reserved for nascent soul stage seniors. The similar pavilions and the quiet rooms in the caves are reserved for other cultivators. As long as there is no light, there will be no one. We can choose whatever we want." Oh, Xiaohua nodded. He withdrew his gaze from the clouds and looked at the seemingly endless pavilions. He said, "What does fellow Taoist Chang think? I think that since we came together, we should help each other 10 days later. Why don't we live together? If something happens, we can take care of each other." Chang Yu looked at the fervent gaze of Zhu Qingli and the absent-minded Wu Tianxin and said, "Okay, we'll do as fellow Taoist Chang says." Xiaohua didn't need to cultivate in any special way, so he nodded in agreement. However, before Chang Yu could say anything, he heard the sound of a tsunami behind him. It was as if a huge wave was coming from afar. Ah! Chang Yu was shocked. He hurriedly turned his head and saw that in the distant sky, there was indeed a layer of blue waves. Chang Yu couldn't help but be shocked. "What's going on?" "Nothing special. Take a closer look." Xiaohua frowned and calmly replied. Xiaohua had already released his divine sense. At this time, there were also many strong and weak divine senses sweeping out from all over the Yaotai mountain. The blue waves were like waves. In just a few breaths, they had already rushed into everyone's field of vision. On the blue waves, a huge ship came with the light. There were more than 10 huge sea turtles around the ship. On the turtles, there were more or less children dressed in Taoist robes. These children were holding flags that emitted a blue light. When the flags were waved, the shells of the sea turtles surged with the color of water. These colors of water connected to each other to form a majestic blue wave. The ship itself also emitted a blue light. This blue light combined with the blue waves of the sea turtles. It was as if the ship was drifting on the sea. Not only that, there were no less than 9 pythons in front of the ship. Each of the pythons was more than 10 feet long. They each spat out a blue light and pulled the ship in the direction of Xiaohua and the others. "Damn it, which senior is this?" Zhu Qingli saw the imposing manner of the ship and couldn't help but cry out. Does a person with this kind of honor still need to participate in the Yaotai conference? As the ship got closer, a beam of light appeared. Another cultivator on the flying ship seemed to want to deliver the token of the Yaotai conference. However, the water on the ship splashed out and the cultivator was sent flying. He couldn't get close to the ship at all. "Hey, who are you? How dare you offend Taoist Yuan Qing's backing? A child flew out from the sea turtle closest to the cultivator and shouted harshly. The poor cultivator finally managed to stand firm on the flying ship. He cried out in fear. I'm here to deliver the token of the Yaotai conference to Taoist Yuan Qing. Give it to me. The child stretched out his hand and said. But the cultivator looked at the people on the turtle, as well as the people on the boat, that he couldn't see clearly. It seemed like he wanted to ask how many people were on the boat, but after muttering a few words, he didn't say anything. He reached out and took out a token. Before he could give it to the boy impatiently reached out, and the token flew into the boy's hand. The boy didn't say anything and chased after the turtle. TSK Zhu Qingli smacked his lips and said, a nascent soul senior is really powerful. Hee, let's see what those who want to recruit Taoist cultivators will do. Wu Tianxin looked with interest at the tents behind him that seemed to outnumber the pavilions, and said with a smile. Unfortunately, Wu Tianxin was disappointed. The low-level Taoist cultivators from various countries who were flying like butterflies just now were now hiding in their tents. He didn't see any one of them. Fellow Taoist Yuan Qing? Why are you moving after sitting still for so long? At this moment, a silver rainbow light streaked across the sky. A young cultivator with a ruddy face stood high in the sky with a horsetail whisk in his hand. Hong Songzi, why are you here? A very high-pitched voice came from the ship. Then a similar green water rushed out from the ship. A cultivator with long white eyebrows and a green Taoist robe appeared on the water. Hong Songzi, this senior is Hong Songzi? Chang Yu heard from the side, and was pleasantly surprised. It seemed that he had admired Hong Songzi for a long time, similar to Chang Yu. Zhu Qingli's face also showed a kind of ecstasy. He pulled on Wu Tianxin's Taoist robe, and couldn't suppress his excitement. He said in a low voice, Fellow Taoist Wu, this senior is Taoist Yuan Qing? It's unbelievable that I can see him here. Wu Tianxin was a bit aloof, and didn't seem to care. However, his gaze was also looking at the two nascent soul cultivators in the sky. Are these two fellow Taoists very famous? Xiaohua asked with interest. Of course. Chang Yu said proudly. This Hong Songzi is a cultivator from our Qing province's Cloud Dream Cave. He already had the strength of a nascent soul more than 1,000 years ago. Now, I'm afraid he has already reached the middle of the 4th grade of Essence Force. He is one of the famous Taoist cultivators in our Qing province. One of them? Xiaohua smiled and asked. Then there must be others. Forgive me for being ignorant, but I wonder who these fellow Taoists are. Of course, Fire Mountain Range's Fairy Huafeng, Golden Jade Valley's young master Shuajin, Lingyu Country's Taoist Qi Ping, Jie Xian Country's Cloud Dream Fairy, and so on. They are all nascent soul cultivators who are as famous as Senior Hong Songzi. Chang Yu said with great familiarity. Fire Mountain Range? Golden Jade Valley? Xiaohua frowned. These nascent soul fellow Taoists don't need to be state teachers? Chapter 3578. Hee, fellow Taoist Xiao is too old-fashioned. Zhu Qingli was very excited and whispered. We don't have the resources to cultivate, so we can only look for them. However, although I haven't seen Volcano Ridge and Golden Jade Valley, it sounds like they are similar to Taoist Yuan Qing's. They have resources such as small primordial stone veins near their caves. With these veins, these seniors can continue to cultivate without ruling a country. It's a pity that these spirit veins are so rare. We don't have the fortune. Wu Tianxin snorted. Even if we find these spirit veins, it'll only benefit others. Hearing this, Xiaohua's interest was piqued. He smiled and said, These nascent soul Taoists, are they starting their own sects? Do Confucian cultivators allow them to be carefree? Who said Taoist Yuan Qing started his own sect? He never accepts disciples. It's just that some Taoist countries send Taoist soldiers to him for guidance when they have the heart to do so. Zhu Qingli hurriedly said. Then, fellow Taoists, are there any famous nascent soul cultivators in Yangzhou? Xiaohua knew that there were always exceptions, so he didn't ask and changed the topic. Zhu Qingli smiled and said, Other than Taoist Yuan Qing of Lufeng Ridge, there's Elder Song of Jade Forest Ocean, Yi Country's Senior Yi Minji, Taoist Ming Chung of Heavenly Ruins Country, Celestial Ling Yin of Cloud Country. There are many. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Not only did he not know about the nascent soul cultivators in Yangzhou and Qingzhou, he didn't even know about the nascent soul cultivators in Yuzhou. Previously, he had stayed with Daoist Li for a while, but he had rushed to Yaotai Mountain. Li Xiang was also disheartened and didn't want to talk about these things. Now, it seemed that he was really ignorant and inexperienced. Sure enough, after Zhu Qingli finished speaking, he asked with a smile, Yuzhou is quite far from Yangzhou, so I don't know about the nascent soul seniors in Yuzhou. I wonder if fellow Daoist Xiao can tell me about them? This Xiaohua rubbed his nose. Just as he was about to speak, Daoist Yuanqing and Hong Songzi seemed to have finished their conversation. Daoist Yuanqing casually sent out a summoning talisman, and the boat rumbled again. Unexpectedly, the blue waves surged violently as it flew into the distance. Only a dozen or so attendants flew out from the boat and stood in midair. The two nascent soul cultivators turned their gazes and scanned the surroundings with their spiritual will. The two nascent soul cultivators naturally weren't looking at Xiaohua and the others. What they cared about was the continuous stretch of tents below them. However, whether it was Changyu, Zhu Qingli, Wu Tianxin, or even those Daoist cultivators who stopped in midair in the distance and didn't dare to casually fly, they hurriedly bowed in greeting, fearing that they would be negligent. As a result, Xiaohua was like a crane among chickens. How arrogant was Daoist Yuanqing! With a single glance, he saw Xiaohua standing there with a smile on his face. He frowned and a strange expression flashed in his eyes. After that, his divine sense gushed toward Xiaohua like a tidal wave. However, Xiaohua didn't care. He was like a mountain. No matter how strong his divine sense was, he didn't care at all. Xiaohua was naturally unharmed. But Changyu and the others were too close to Xiaohua and were unavoidably affected. The three of them swayed slightly, their faces somewhat pale. Xiaohua waved his hand, but with a flash of brilliance, Daoist Yuanqing immediately felt as if his divine sense had been forcefully pushed back by several feet. Daoist Yuanqing's expression immediately changed slightly. Beside him, Hong Songzi saw Xiaohua and naturally frowned. A faint blue light flashed in his eyes, as if he was using some kind of secret technique. However, Daoist Yuanqing's expression changed, and Hong Songzi's expression also changed, because he seemed to be unable to use his secret technique to perceive Xiaohua's cultivation. The two of them looked at each other, and didn't dare to be negligent. They hurriedly flew down from the sky and cupped their hands in greeting from afar. Greetings, fellow Daoist. May I know where fellow Daoists came from? Are you also here to participate in the Jadestage meeting? Ah? Seeing the two nascent soul cultivators so humble, Changyu and the others somewhat didn't dare to believe their eyes. They knew that Xiaohua's cultivation was higher than theirs, but in their opinion, he was merely at the upper third grade of essence energy or the lower fourth grade of essence energy. They had never thought that a Daoist cultivator at the middle fourth grade of essence energy would be so amiable. I am Xiaohua of Yu Province's Black Cloud Ridge. Greetings, fellow Daoists. Xiaohua raised his hand to return the greeting. I am here to participate in the Jadestage meeting. Xiaohua. Daoist Yuanqing was even more surprised. He looked at Hong Songzi beside him, and Hong Songzi also slightly shook his head. Obviously, the two of them had never heard of Xiaohua's name. Daoist Xiao, you're hiding your strength. If I didn't look twice, wouldn't I have missed fellow Daoist? Daoist Yuanqing smiled. I am Daoist Yuanqing of Yang Province's Lufeng Ridge. This is Hong Songzi of Qing Province's Cloud Dream Cave. On the hidden immortal continent, there are not many nascent soul cultivators in my Daoist sect. Since we are all here to participate in the Jadestage meeting, why don't we get to know each other? Hee fellow Daoists, please go ahead. Xiaohua looked at Zhu Qingli and the others beside him and smiled. How about I pay you two a visit after I settle down? Okay, Hong Songzi looked at Xiaohua's surroundings. He knew that Xiaohua didn't bring any attendants with him. He nodded and said, Fellow Daoist Xiao, please take a rest first. Later, I will send some attendants to invite fellow Daoist. I'll follow fellow Daoist's arrangement. Xiaohua smiled and agreed. Soon after, the two of them cupped their hands towards Xiaohua and flew away. They brought along a dozen attendants and landed in the palace at the foot of Yaotai Mountain. Senior Xiao. Changyu smiled bitterly and said, Senior, you've really played with this junior. These past few days, you've really made this junior lose face. Haha, since you know this Zhao's temper, then there's no need to be so polite. Xiao Hua saw the respect in Changyu's tone, and the smile on his face. He knew that Changyu had already grasped his temper. You all, follow this Xiao to the palace used by nascent soul cultivators. Yes, Junior will listen to Senior Zhao's instructions. Changyu and Zhu Qingli's voices were rather respectful. However, Wu Tianxin seemed to be a bit reserved. After all, he had complained a lot along the way. Thinking about it now, he felt very embarrassed. Changyu, you lead the way. Xiao Hua instructed. Changyu took the lead and flew towards Yaotai Mountain. The crowd in the distance and many people in the underground tent saw this scene. They all whispered in the distance. They didn't dare to sweep their divine senses over. They looked over again and again, wanting to know what was so special about Xiao Hua. Of course, the eyes of the man who was hiding at the side of the tent flashed with ecstasy. He stared straight at the place where Xiao Hua landed. He seemed to have made a decision. Unfortunately, even when Xiao Hua landed at the foot of Yaotai Mountain with Changyu and the others, they still didn't discover anything. At the foot of Yaotai Mountain, the palaces were different from the pavilions. They had different styles and sizes. Many of the palaces were already flashing with brilliance. The restrictions inside had already been activated. It was obvious that there were already people inside. However, there weren't many of these palaces. Xiao Hua took a glance and knew that there were about 20 of them. These 20 or so palaces were naturally the minority, but the number made Xiao Hua's heart startled. These were nascent soul cultivators. On Dawn Rain Continent, they were already grandmaster figures who established their own sections. How many nascent soul cultivators appeared in the Sword Dao Great War? On this small Yaotai Mountain, on the hidden immortal continent where Confucian cultivators stood in great numbers, there were actually 20 nascent soul cultivators all of a sudden. How could Xiao Hua not be shocked? Of course, after thinking about it a little, Xiao Hua had some understanding. Although the Dawn Rain Continent was a flourishing Dao sect, its territory couldn't be considered vast. It didn't seem to be as big as the hidden immortal continent. Moreover, when he was on the Dawn Rain Continent, although he already had nascent soul strength, he was still a gold core cultivator. Even before the Sword Dao War, he was still a Foundation Establishment disciple. Even if the Dawn Rain Continent had a grand event like the Yaotai Conference, he couldn't participate. How many nascent soul cultivators could he know? Take the Imperial Thunder sect as an example. At most, he had seen the 8 palace masters. Who knew if there were any more powerful elders? Senior, what do you think of this palace? Seeing Xiao Hua not speaking, Changyu pointed at a rather exquisite small palace and asked in a low voice. And here it is. Xiao Hua had never had any requirements for these things. He nodded and answered. Then he swept his divine sense and immediately found that there was a strange magic power fluctuation at the palace gate. When he probed with his divine sense, he only felt that the jade carving of a horsetail whisk outside the palace gate gave birth to a very weak suction force. Thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua looked at the brilliance of the palace beside him and sent out his divine sense. In an instant, a strong suction force rushed out from the jade carving. Just as Xiao Hua frowned, it suddenly stopped. Then a palm-sized jade tablet rushed out from the jade carving's horsetail whisk. Xiao Hua waved his hand, and the jade tablet appeared in his hand. He looked at it with his divine sense and said with a smile, "So that's how it is. This so-called Star Lord Palace is also interesting. All the decorations and restrictions are Dao sect magic. There's no trace of Confucian cultivation at all. I'm afraid if it's too much, it will make us Dao sect disciples feel disgusted," Zhu Qingli said in a low voice. Quick! Xiao Hua touched the jade tablet with his hand. The jade tablet immediately emitted a cluster of light that rushed into the palace door. The palace door lit up as if it was the finishing touch. The light began to spread along the palace walls and other places. Not long after, layers of Dao talisman scripts appeared on the entire palace walls. "Let's go in." Xiao Hua waved his hand again, and the jade tablet fell on the palace gate. The palace gate silently opened, revealing the splendor inside. The 4 people walked into the palace and released their divine sense. After a little exploration, they all smiled. This palace only had 4 quiet rooms, 1 big and 3 small. There was no need to divide them. Senior Xiao Jr. will take his leave first. Changyu bowed first. I'll pay my respects to Senior tomorrow. No need to be so polite. Xiaohua waved his hand. The Jade Pavilion gathering will be in 10 days. It's better for you all to cultivate quietly. Even if you can't get the Imperial Teacher's lot, it's also good to get some rare spirit fruits. Yes. Senior, please rest. Junior will take his leave. Zhu Qingli hurriedly bowed and saluted. Following Changyu, Wu Tianxin and the other 2 didn't need to discuss anything. They each occupied a quiet room. Chapter 3579. Changyu and the others were filled with thoughts in the quiet room. They were surprised by their encounters these days. If there was a pen in the cave, they might have written some stories about nascent soul cultivators. When Xiaohua entered the quiet room, that quiet room was different from the splendor of the palace hall. It looked very simple and crude. Other than a jade bed, there was nothing else. Xiaohua released his soul consciousness and scanned the room. He didn't find anything out of the ordinary. With a wave of his hand, he took out 100 jade talismans and placed them around the room. After activating the capital star formation, he sat cross-legged on the jade bed and reached out to take Xiansongzi's ink cloud pupil from the dragon vein. He released his divine sense and carefully studied it. After an unknown period of time, Xiaohua suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the entrance of the quiet room. There was a flash of surprise in his eyes. Then Xiaohua gave the ink cloud pupil to dragon vein Xiaohua. He waved his hand and the entrance of the quiet room flashed. He said, Wu Tianxin, what's the matter? At the door was Wu Tianxin, a middle gold core stage cultivator, waiting. At this moment, hearing Xiaohua's voice, a complicated expression appeared on Wu Tianxin's face. He turned around to look at the empty palace, clenched his teeth, and quickly walked into the quiet room. Before he reached the center of the quiet room, he actually knelt on the ground with a plop and begged, Senior Xiao, please save this junior's life. Ah. What do you mean? Xiaohua didn't expect Wu Tianxin to kneel and ask him to save his life. He didn't see anything unusual with Wu Tianxin along the way. Xiaohua could only wave his sleeve and lift Wu Tianxin up. He said anxiously, Get up and tell me in detail. Oh, don't worry, even if Taoist Yuan Qing wants your life, as long as you are in the right, I will help you. Yes, Wu Tianxin asked Xiaohua for help. It could only be because of a grudge with a nascent soul cultivator. If it was most likely, then it was Taoist Yuan Qing. Thank you, Senior. Wu Tianxin took advantage of the situation and stood up. Hearing Xiaohua's words, he smiled bitterly and said, Senior, you're thinking too much. Although Junior's mouth is not virtuous and likes to nag when encountering problems, and even somewhat cynical, Junior still has self-awareness and will absolutely not offend someone who shouldn't be offended. Oh, what could it be? Xiaohua asked curiously. Tell me about it first. This old man will also think about it and see how I can help you. Senior Wu Tianxin looked at Xiaohua. He was somewhat hesitant. Then he asked tentatively, if this junior says that this junior doesn't have anything to ask for Senior's help right now, but this junior would like to ask Senior to save this junior's life in the future. Well, perhaps at the Jade Pavilion conference, would Senior believe me? Xiaohua smiled and nodded. Of course I believe you. Why wouldn't this old man believe you? Looking at Xiaohua's calm appearance, Wu Tianxin was extremely disappointed. He sighed and said, Senior Xiao, Junior knows that you don't believe Junior. But I really want to ask you to save my life in the future. He Wu Tianxin, this old man has already said that I believe you. Why don't you believe me? Xiaohua said with a smile. You also underestimate the magical abilities of us nascent soul cultivators too much. Not to mention that the Jade Pavilion conference is close at hand. This old man and other nascent soul cultivators can sense good and bad luck on a whim. Even if an ominous omen several months later, this old man and other nascent soul cultivators can still sense it. What Junior said is not the same as what Senior said. Wu Tianxin bit his lips and said in a low voice, Junior's cultivation is not that high. Junior can only sense that my life is at stake. If I can't find someone to help me in time, I may die at any time. That's a bit strange. Xiaohua looked pensive. He looked at Wu Tianxin and said with a smile, since you know that the Jade Pavilion conference points to disaster, why did you still come thousands of miles to Yaotai Mountain? Of course, even if you came to Yaotai Mountain, you wouldn't have participated in the Jade Pavilion conference at the beginning. Wouldn't that have been fine? Senior Wu Tianxin was on the verge of tears. After thinking for a moment, he said, Senior, do you believe that there is someone who knows what might happen 10,000 miles away from Yaotai Mountain tomorrow? Or that someone related to this person will appear 10,000 miles away tomorrow? Isn't it just a divination technique? Or it's called foresight? Xiaohua was not surprised. He said with a smile, could it be that you know this technique? Wu Tianxin was stunned. It was as if he was struck by lightning. He looked at Xiaohua foolishly. After a long while, he did not answer Xiaohua's question and asked, Senior Xiao, do you know this technique? I know a little. Xiaohua did not hide it. He said with a smile. It's just that this old man's cultivation is shallow and has only touched the surface. Senior, save me. Wu Tianxin said no more. He knelt down and kowtowed again. Xiaohua was displeased. He did not help Wu Tianxin up and said indifferently, Wu Tianxin, since you asked me to save you, why are you hiding it and not daring to say it? How can there be such a logic in begging others in this world? This is also because this old man knows that although your mouth is not good, your character is not bad. Otherwise, I would absolutely not agree. Senior, please forgive me. This junior knows his mistake. Wu Tianxin did not dare to get up. He said in a low voice, this junior is also afraid. This junior's cultivation is not as good as senior's, but this junior also knows the principle that an ordinary man's wealth is his own ruin. Speak, what is it? Xiaohua waved his hand. This old man will not covet your secret divination technique. Wu Tianxin clenched his teeth and said in a low voice, Senior, can you open the restrictions on the quiet room? Xiaohua smiled. He knew that Wu Tianxin was worried. He waved his hand and the capital star array was activated. Wu Tianxin released his divine sense. Seeing that his divine sense could not penetrate the array, he felt relieved and began to explain his situation. After Xiaohua finished listening to Wu Tianxin's words, although he had already expected it, he was still dumbfounded. This was because Wu Tianxin was somewhat similar to Lu Yi. He had a kind of innate talent that allowed him to distinguish between good and bad. Wu Tianxin also relied on this ability to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. At the beginning, his cultivation path could be considered smooth sailing. After his cultivation reached the fusion stage, which was the peak of the aura refining realm, he inadvertently obtained an incomplete nameless cultivation technique. This cultivation technique's words were obscure, and others could not understand it at all. However, Wu Tianxin relied on his own intuition and knew that this thing was very important to him. He spent a total of 200 years comprehending it. In the end, although he was not proficient in it, he still had a basic understanding of it, and knew that this was a mysterious divination technique. However, at this point, it was impossible for Wu Tianxin to comprehend it further. No matter how he racked his brains and tried to think of a way, he could not comprehend even the slightest bit. Wu Tianxin was naturally unwilling. At first, he took a part of this thing to ask others for guidance. No one with the same cultivation as him could understand it. As for those with higher cultivation than him, he did not dare to be too ostentatious. Every time, he would first sense whether or not it was safe before taking out the thing to ask for guidance. However, how could human nature be measured by his half-baked divination technique? There were many times when he almost lost his life in the hands of others. Later, he no longer dared to take risks. He would rather think hard than ask others for guidance. This was also the reason why Wu Tianxin's words were usually very cynical. It was also the reason why Wu Tianxin did not dare to explain it to Xiaohua. Relying on the divination technique that Wu Tianxin did not understand, relying on his innate intuition, Wu Tianxin felt that he was about to face a great tribulation several decades ago. This great tribulation was not related to cultivation, but what it was specifically and where it would appear, he did not understand. In these several decades, Wu Tianxin cultivated day and night in order to improve his strength, so that he could deal with the Great Tribulation. However, even though Wu Tianxin had already cultivated to the middle stage of Jindan, and could be considered as a somewhat famous Taoist cultivator in Yangzhou, the feeling of dark clouds pressing down on him did not disappear. Instead, it became more and more intense. Especially in recent years, Wu Tianxin almost felt like he could not breathe. Wu Tianxin simply stopped cultivating. Instead, he spent nearly 10 years calmly divining according to the secret divination technique. In the end, Wu Tianxin vaguely knew that he absolutely could not overcome this difficulty. Moreover, his opportunity was not in Yangzhou, not in the Panshan cave. However, he did not know where it was or who to ask for help. At this time, it just so happened that Zhu Qingli of Xiuhu Mountain invited Wu Tianxin to go to Yaotai Mountain to participate in the Yaotai Assembly. Normally, Wu Tianxin, who had no interest in ruling a country, would absolutely not agree. However, at this time his heart was moved. He knew that this was an opportunity. Perhaps he could find his own way out. Therefore, Wu Tianxin went out with Zhu Qingli. Unfortunately, Wu Tianxin first met Changyu. Changyu's character was not bad, but his attitude as a senior made Wu Tianxin feel uncomfortable. Especially when Wu Tianxin asked about some divination techniques. Changyu did not know anything. Wu Tianxin was discouraged. He only wanted to go to Yaotai Mountain and ask other Yuanying cultivators to take a look. When he met Xiaohua, Wu Tianxin simply did not care. Xiaohua was really too used to being a low-level cultivator. Wu Tianxin simply did not see a trace of Xiaohua's awareness as a Yuanying cultivator. Xiaohua's whole body was filled with amiability and amiability. Therefore, Wu Tianxin did not have the heart to ask him for help. Only when Xiaohua's depth was seen through by Daoist Master Yuan Qing and the others did Wu Tianxin become vigilant. When Wu Tianxin hid in a quiet room and once again used divination techniques, he suddenly discovered that he was really in imminent danger. Moreover, this danger seemed to be on Yaotai Mountain. Just when Wu Tianxin was in despair, he discovered a trace of life. As for where this life was, how could Wu Tianxin know with his current cultivation level? And Xiaohua was naturally the only water plant that Wu Tianxin could grasp. Alas, this is really unimaginable. Xiaohua sighed. If you weren't on Yaotai Mountain, perhaps you wouldn't have to worry about your life. However, it was precisely because you sensed a life force outside the Pan Mountain cave that you came to Yaotai Mountain. Tell me, should you come to Yaotai Mountain in the end? Even if you don't want to come, even if you want to go back now, don't you also sense a certain death situation? Wu Tianxin nodded with a sullen face. Obviously, he himself had long sensed it and used divination techniques to divine it. Chapter 3580. You can get up. Xiaohua waved his hand. Presumably you never mentioned this to Zhu Qingli and Changyu, right? Junior doesn't dare to speak casually. Wu Tianxin got up and said in a low voice. Then, do you think I was able to save you because of your divination technique? Xiaohua asked again. Wu Tianxin shook his head. Junior can't divine this. However, Junior already has this kind of perception. Xiaohua shook his head with a smile. I'm afraid it's not perception, but what you think. You only know me as a nascent soul cultivator in the entire Yaotai Mountain. Who else can you find if not me? Junior's mind is already in a mess. Wu Tianxin didn't know what to say and said helplessly. Junior didn't intend to participate in the Yaotai conference before, but now it seems that I must participate and will inevitably encounter great danger. If possible, I ask Senior to save me. And that's not a problem. Xiaohua simply agreed. If I can help you, I will naturally help you. Thank you, Senior, thank you. Wu Tianxin hurriedly thanked him. Also Xiaohua asked again. Did you perceive your own danger or the danger of the Yaotai conference? What danger will there be in the Yaotai conference? Wu Tianxin was puzzled. Junior can only perceive my own danger, and the divination technique didn't show any danger in the Yaotai conference? And Xiaohua responded thoughtfully. He understood that he had been comprehending the hand of karma for so many years, but he still couldn't accurately perceive karma. Wu Tianxin's cultivation was even worse. If he didn't have an innate talent, he probably wouldn't be able to perceive some things now. Then Junior will take his leave. Wu Tianxin clenched his teeth and said in a low voice. Xiaohua smiled and said, "Don't worry. Since you want to participate in the Yaotai conference, follow me. If there are any benefits, I will give it to you. If you encounter any difficulties, I will definitely help you." Junior doesn't dare to say too much about Senior's great kindness at this time. It won't be too late to say more after Junior escapes this disaster. Wu Tianxin bowed again, and waited for Xiaohua to remove the restriction of the quiet room before slowly leaving. Things in this world are really interesting. There are so many capable people. Looking at Wu Tianxin's somewhat excited back, a trace of a smile hung on the corner of Xiaohua's mouth. Since the hidden immortal continent is like this, the Dawn Rain continent must also be like this. Unfortunately, this Zhao's cultivation was really shallow when he was in the Dawn Rain continent, so he couldn't see things as high as this. Jiuxia very naturally, the mysterious Jiuxia who could predict the future appeared in Xiaohua's mind. Of course, compared to Jiuxia's beauty, the importance of being able to predict the future in Xiaohua's heart was still far behind. Seeing that Xiaohua's expression was a little dazed, the silver-gray color in his eyes gradually rose, and the traces of the galaxy suddenly appeared. Outside the quiet room, the sound of footsteps sounded again. A faint green light flashed between Xiaohua's eyebrows. His eyes slightly shook, and those pitch-black eyes of his regained their color. In fact, Xiaohua didn't need to look anymore, he already knew who it was. Sure enough, before long, the smile on Zhu Qingli's face was like a flower. The spirit pills bestowed by Xiaohua were exactly what he needed. Under his pleading, Xiaohua even gave him a nascent soul cultivation method. Of course, as for whether or not he could cultivate to the nascent soul stage, that was not something Xiaohua could know. At this time, Xiaohua simply didn't comprehend any cultivation method. He took out a scroll and read it with great interest. Confucian cultivators were the same as Taoist cultivators, both good and bad were mixed. However, the scrolls left behind by Confucian cultivators for so many years were the real deal. The vast number of articles were filled with penetrating insight. Every time he read an article, every time he read a scroll, Xiaohua could feel the writer's heart and experience the awe-inspiring intent within. Fujiwen was right. The awe-inspiring aura was the foundation, but the awe-inspiring aura itself was dead. It was the cultivation of Confucian cultivators, and it was the breathing of Confucian cultivators that gave the awe-inspiring aura vitality. This vitality was precipitated in the awe-inspiring aura. Whether it was thousands of years, 10,000 years, or hundreds of millions of years, as long as there were Confucian cultivators and articles passed down, the awe-inspiring aura would exist. This kind of inheritance was beyond the reach of Taoist cultivators. Sometimes, Xiaohua even had an illusion that the awe-inspiring aura inheritance of Confucian cultivators was borrowed from the inheritance in the mind of the evil spirit. Of course, Xiaohua's Buddha Sarira was also studying Buddhist scriptures and cultivating Buddhist Dharma. It was similarly broad and profound, causing the Buddha Sarira to be intoxicated. Now, the time it spent studying Buddhist scriptures had exceeded the time it spent cultivating Dharma. If Xiaohua hadn't come into contact with the scrolls of Confucian cultivators before, he would have ordered the Buddha relic to focus on cultivating Buddhist doctrine. However, after looking at the scrolls and Buddhist doctrine, Xiaohua knew that Buddhist scriptures were the foundation of Buddhist doctrine. Buddhist doctrine was only a minor detail. Looking at Guzhan's situation, and looking at Manjushri Bodhisattva's fruit, if he focused on Buddhist doctrine, it would really be putting the cart before the horse, picking up sesame seeds and throwing away watermelons. Demons, how do they cultivate? In an instant, Xiaohua, who was reading the scrolls, was distracted again. When he was in the Dawn Rain continent, Xiaohua had seen beast cultivators. At first, he thought that they should be formed by combining weapon cultivators and demon cultivators. However, ordinary demon cultivators, as the name implied, were cultivators who cultivated demonic arts. Since they were cultivators, they were humans. On the hidden immortal continent, whether it was Taoist cultivators, Confucian cultivators, or Buddhist cultivators, they could all be called cultivators. However, the demons of the Thousand Demons sacred realm were different. They were not humans. Moreover, according to High Wind Old Monster, they never considered themselves as cultivators. Therefore, they could not be called demon cultivators, because they were demons or evil spirits. According to what I know, and the gradually growing memories of Little Yellow and Little Black, they should be imprints of inheritance, just like the phoenix imprint on Fairy Hongxia's forehead. Since Fairy Hongxia and other cultivators with genuine bloodlines can obtain the inheritance of these imprints, then wouldn't the demons be even more privileged? If that's the case, then what about the 2 bones in the demon formation of Qianyu Mountain? There seem to be some runes on the bones. Then how do you explain the stellar energy that the demon formation drew upon? Xiaohua thought more and more. After a long while, the entire palace was silent, as if there was no one around. Suddenly, Xiaohua raised his eyebrows, looked at the book in his hand, smiled and muttered to himself. If I don't understand the cultivation techniques of the Buddhist sect, then I have no place to ask, but how does this demon cultivate? Why should I think so much? With these 2 children, Little Yellow and Little Black, what do I have to worry about? When they come back, can't I just ask them properly? With that thought in mind, Xiaohua once again concentrated on reading the book. At the top of his head, wisps of clear air were produced, slowly dissipating. Half a day passed unknowingly. Xiaohua put down the book, stretched, and casually swept his gaze across the quiet room. The restriction outside the quiet room was not activated, and said with a smile, "This fellow Chang, you can keep his composure, looks like he's a somewhat shrewd cultivator." Just as Xiaohua was about to pick up the book again, he frowned, and said with a helpless smile, "Chang, you didn't come, but Taoist Yuan Qing did." However, when he released his divine sense to investigate, a strange expression appeared on his face, and he asked curiously, why did he come to Yaotai Mountain? Soon after, Xiaohua stood up again, and said with a smile, "No matter what, he's an old friend. I have to personally welcome him." Xiaohua walked out of the quiet room, and Chang Yu immediately sensed it. He hurriedly came out of the quiet room, bowed and said, "Senior Xiao, is there something wrong?" "Nothing, you wait here and meditate. This old man has an old friend coming to visit." Xiaohua waved his hand. Chang Yu did not ask any more, and returned to the quiet room with cupped hands. Xiaohua walked to the palace door, and with a wave of his hand, the palace door flashed with brilliance, and silently opened again. Outside the palace door stood a person with a large head. On the face of this head, there was a pair of broom-like eyebrows and 2 leopard eyes. Previously, there was shock in those eyes, but now it was replaced with fear and surprise. Wasn't this the Black Horse Cavalry General of the left, Xue Ping? "I'm late, fellow Taoist. Xue has been waiting for a long time," Xiaohua said with a smile. Xue Ping hurriedly bowed and said, "Junior Xue Ping greets Senior Xiao. Previously, I really didn't know Senior Xiao's true identity. I was too rude, please forgive me." It's fine. Xiaohua helped Xue Ping up and said, "Those who don't know are not guilty. At that time, this old man was only traveling in the country of Xi, and did not intend to let more people know my identity. It would be strange if fellow Taoist Xue found out. Senior, please call me Xue Ping, otherwise this junior will feel awkward." Xue Ping stood up and said pitifully, his face full of embarrassment. That's right, that day, Xue Ping aggressively tested Xiaohua's strength, and even wanted to promote Xiaohua to the position of Right General. Who would have thought that in just a year, he would become a nascent soul senior? This leap was so big that Xue Ping felt like he was in a dream. Therefore, when Xue Ping was standing beside the tent, he did not dare to approach, and only now did he make up his mind to pay his respects. Xiaohua nodded, turned around and said, "This old man understands, you may come in." "Yes." Xue Ping nodded obediently and followed Xiaohua into the palace. Xiaohua did not return to the quiet room, but sat at the head of the palace. Xue Ping naturally did not dare to overstep, and stood respectfully in front of the jade table, quietly waiting for Xiaohua to speak. Xiaohua waved his hand, and took out a jade plate containing some spirit fruits. He placed it on the jade table beside him and said with a smile, "Xue Ping, have a seat. Have a taste of the spirit fruits first, then we can talk slowly." "Yes, this junior thanks senior for the fruit." Xue Ping did not dare to be negligent. After bowing and thanking him, he sat down and picked up a spirit fruit to taste carefully. Seeing that Xue Ping was still so reserved, Xiaohua smiled and said, "Xue Ping, Why did you come to Yaotai Mountain instead of being the left general in the country of Shiznampu County? It seems that your cultivation is not enough to be the state preceptor. Could it be that you came here specifically to wait for this old man? Could it be that you have the ability to predict the future? Chapter 3581. Xiaohua was obviously joking, but when Xueping heard it, his heart calmed down. He hurriedly put down the spirit fruit and said respectfully, "Senior, please know that I'm no longer the left general. Oh, I should say that I'm no longer in the country of Shiznampu County." "Oh." Xiaohua raised his brows and asked curiously, "You were doing well in the country of Shiznampu County. Why did you go somewhere else?" At this point, Xiaohua hurriedly smiled and said, "Oh, that's right. I remember that I had an agreement with you. However, because I really didn't have the time to leave, I kept delaying it. Don't worry." Did you already go there? And you returned with a full load, so you're no longer working in the country of Shi? No, it's not what Senior thinks. Xueping hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Without an expert like Senior leading the way, I wouldn't dare to go there. If Senior has the time in the future and wants to go there, I'm willing to bring you there." "I see." Xiaohua scratched his chin and nodded. "After the Yaotai summit, I will have some free time. If you have the time, why don't we travel together?" "Great, great." Xueping was overjoyed and scratched his head. Xiaohua looked at Xueping with a faint smile and said, "Xueping, don't tell me you chased me all the way to Yaotai Mountain and wanted me to fulfill my promise?" Xueping hurriedly reined in his joy and smiled apologetically. "Senior Xiao, you're mistaken. How could I know that Senior would come to Yaotai Mountain? I'm only following my general to Yaotai Mountain." "Oh." Xiaohua nodded. "It seems like you had a fortuitous encounter after leaving the country of Shi." Xueping smiled bitterly. "Senior, you must be joking. How could I have a fortuitous encounter? It's better to say that I was forced to leave the country of Shi. Have a seat. Let's talk." While eating, Xiaohua smiled and pointed at the spirit fruits on Xueping's table. He took out some spirit fruits and took a bite. Seeing Xiaohua's behavior, Xueping was somewhat relieved. He squeezed out a smile on his face that was as black as the bottom of a pot. He picked up a spirit fruit from the table and took a few bites. "Senior, you're really enjoying yourself. It's been a long time since I've enjoyed such a wondrous spirit fruit." "It's nothing. It's just a small token of appreciation from some juniors. It would be impolite for this old man to refuse," Xiaohua said with a slight smile. Xueping ate a few spirit fruits before wiping his mouth and smiling embarrassedly. "Senior, I was ordered by the prefectural governor to go to Longevity Town to provide disaster relief. Thanks to Senior's grain, the townspeople didn't suffer too much of a disaster. With the help of Mo Yen and Mo Jianli, this junior has also successfully completed the important task of disaster relief. However, even though I had completed my mission, something unexpected happened when I was about to leave Longevity Town." Xueping stole a glance at Xiaohua's expression. Xiaohua seemed to be tasting the spirit fruits while listening to Xueping's explanation. Seeing that Xueping had stopped, he raised his head naturally and asked curiously, "What's wrong? What could possibly happen in Longevity Town that you didn't expect? This old man hasn't heard any news from Longevity Town for a long time after I left. I do miss the monks of Shaojin Temple." Haha, Xueping chuckled. "Senior, you're truly a playboy. With your cultivation, I'm afraid you can destroy the Shaojin Temple with a single finger. I heard from Mo Jianli that you even. However, at this point, Xueping's expression suddenly changed. If Xiaohua's fight with the monks of the small gold temple was considered a game of the mortal world, then Xiaohua's battle with Liao Jiang, what kind of game was that? No matter how much Xiaohua played around, he couldn't treat the lives of the townspeople of Longevity Town as child's play. He even gave the credit of defeating the sea race to the Buddhist sect Hang. This didn't make sense at all. Xiaohua pondered for a moment. He knew what Xueping was thinking and smiled. This old man was injured that day and my cultivation was greatly reduced. Otherwise, how could I have allowed the sea race to run rampant in Liaojiang? Even you. Didn't you give this old man a shock too? Xueping came to a realization and hurriedly smiled. Senior really didn't show his true colors that day. This junior really couldn't tell. Ping did not dare to ask any more questions. He continued, Senior, there is something you don't know. Ever since Buddhist sect's master Hang blocked the Sea tribe at Liao River, and used a Buddhist sect's Buddhist artifact to collect the river water that was supposed to flood Longevity Town, he obtained the psyche power of tens of thousands of townspeople in Longevity Town. He almost attained the Bodhisattva Buddha fruit in Longevity Town. The townspeople of Longevity Town have regarded Master Hang as their savior. Not only did they worship Longevity Town's memorial tablet at home every day, they also went to Shaojin Temple to offer incense and recite the virtues of Guanyin Bodhisattva. Previously in Long Life Town, Long Life Academy was still the leader. That small gold temple really wasn't much. Only a bit better than the River and Tide Temple when Senior first arrived in Long Life Town. However, with the worship of tens of thousands of villagers, small gold temple's incense offerings flourished 100 times. Oh, the Jiangqiao Temple where you stayed that day is no longer there. It's said that they're going to build a Guanyin monastery. Not only are the townspeople of Longevity Town so crazy, the entire country of Xi and the other countries in Yu Province, be it the devout townspeople or the monks of various temples, all of them are flocking to Longevity Town as if they're on a pilgrimage. They're heading to Shaojin Temple and Guanyin Monastery to worship Guanyin Bodhisattva. Senior, you must have seen clearly that day that Hang was only one step away from attaining the Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. However, in reality, he didn't attain the Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. Ping continued. However, according to the mouths of those foolish townspeople, Hang actually attained the Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. They even want to forge a 10-foot golden body for Guanyin Bodhisattva on Jiangqiao Ridge. Furthermore, I've heard that many people feel that Jiangqiao Ridge is too small to accommodate Guanyin Bodhisattva's golden body. They're prepared to either completely demolish Jiangqiao Ridge and build it on the flat ground or pile up soil to build a mountain around Jiangqiao Ridge, expanding the area of Jiangqiao Ridge tenfold. His Xiaohua gasped and asked curiously, although the north of Jiangqiao Ridge is barren, there are farmlands and farmhouses in the east and west. How are they going to demolish them or pile up soil to build a mountain? Ping smiled bitterly. Senior, you might not know this, but the townspeople near Jiangqiao Ridge know that it's for Guanyin Bodhisattva's golden body. They've long donated the farmlands and left with their families. Sai Xiaohua sighed. Longevity Town is now a monk town filled with bald people. A tile fell and injured 10 people. 6 of them were monks who came to Longevity Town while the other 4 were devotees who came to offer incense. Ping continued. Longevity Town belongs to Nampu County. When the county governor found out about this, he had a huge headache and hurriedly reported it to the king. I don't know about the king's decree, but ever since the king's decree, the entire Nampu County has been shrouded in a strange atmosphere. On the surface, Nampu County seems to be very peaceful, and the government and people are normal. However, there's an undercurrent surging within. Not only have some Confucian cultivators secretly come, but many Taoist cultivators have also revealed themselves. As the first person to render meritorious service in Longevity Town, I've received many rewards. There's even a rumor that the king intends to give me the position of general to guard Longevity Town. The more I think about it, the more scared I feel. These Confucian cultivators must have a huge conflict with the Buddhist sect in Longevity Town. They can play whatever they want, but why are they involving us Taoist cultivators? As a Taoist disciple and exposed myself, I'll definitely be the first to be sent out if there's any strange movement. If I don't go by then, I'll be disobeying the king's decree. Not to mention the king, even the county governor can take my head. However, if I go, will the Buddhist sect's Dharma protector let me live in peace? I'm sure that the demon-subduing pestle is already waiting to land on my head, right? Thus, I might as well go all out and submit a letter to the county governor to resign, saying that I've reached a critical point in my cultivation of a secret technique that involves my life. The prefectural governor did not agree at first, but this junior submitted 3 dictionaries in a row. In the end, the prefectural governor remembered this junior's hard work and finally agreed. This junior received the confirmation and left Nampu County on the same day. Not bad. You're able to see clearly when to advance and when to retreat. Xiaohua nodded. After all, the situation in Longevity Town was really strange. Shui Ping was able to see so far despite being in the middle of it, which surprised Xiao Hua. Then where are you now? I'm currently serving as a county governor in Putian County in Liang Province's Shanliang country. Shui Ping didn't dare to hide anything, and answered honestly. Xiao Hua smiled and clapped. Not bad, not bad. You used to be the left general. Now that you're a county governor, you've improved. Speaking up to this point, Xiao Hua was suddenly stunned as though he thought of something. He exclaimed, "Oh, that's not right. Shui Ping, this Shanliang country, seems to be established by the Buddhist sect. You're not serving in the country established by the Taoist sect. Why did you go from a Confucian country to a Buddhist sect country?" Shui Ping blinked his eyes. He was very surprised that Xiao Hua knew that the Shanliang country was established by the Buddhist sect. However, he didn't dare to ask and could only answer, "Senior, you might not know. My cultivation in Tao isn't profound, but I have some unique points in the art of war and spear arts. If I went to the country established by the Taoist sect, there might not be a position that I'm satisfied with. Only a country established by the Buddhist sect or a country established by the Confucian sect can satisfy me. Among them, the descendants of the Confucian school of the military are also skilled in the art of war. I found a few Confucian countries, but I wasn't satisfied. When I arrived at the Shanliang country, although I'm not too fond of the Buddhist sect, the people in the Shanliang country are simple and honest, and the Buddhist aura is exuberant. The country's ruler is also a kind-hearted person. Compared to the few Confucian countries nearby, it's much better. Therefore, I attempted to serve the Putian County governor. Coincidentally, the Putian County governor was lacking someone like me who knew how to lead troops and set up formations. After trying, he was very satisfied and immediately petitioned the king to request for the position of left general for me. What surprised me even more was that the king's decree actually allowed me to become the county governor's army. Not only will I control the Putian County's military and political power, but I'll also assist the county governor in handling government affairs. He doesn't care about my identity as a Taoist sect cultivator at all. The king's breadth of mind. Tsk. I'm truly impressed. Chapter 3582. Oh, the monarch of the Chanyang kingdom is so wise. Xiao Hua was a little confused. It seemed that in Xiao Jian's words, the monarch of the Chaoyang country was a cruel person, an ungrateful person, extremely unbearable. Why was it so different from Shui Ping's description? This monarch. What is his name? If we're talking about the monarch's name, it has something to do with Senior Xiao, Shui Ping said with a smile. My monarch's surname is Xiao and his name is Jun. He's a loyal monarch. Xiao Jun? Xiao Hua frowned. Wasn't this the shameless person Xiao Jian mentioned who stole his throne? Actually, I came to Yaotai Mountain because I took the initiative to request the monarch to send people to recruit some Dao cultivators, Shui Ping continued. After all, although my Chanyang kingdom has a strong population, it might not be rich. I feel that we urgently need some people with lofty ideals to help our monarch govern the country and prevent other countries from harboring ill intentions towards my Chanyang kingdom. Don't tell me you were bribed by a mere county governor joining the army? Xiao Hua said with a smile. Don't forget that you're a Dao cultivator. You're not a Buddhist kingdom's bodhisattva. Senior, you're wrong. When Shui Ping heard that, he answered righteously. Of course I won't abandon my principles just because a prefectural governor has joined the army. I still don't approve of the Buddhist sect, but that doesn't mean I don't approve of a Buddhist kingdom, or the monarch of a Buddhist kingdom. My monarch seems to know about the Yaotai meeting, but he didn't think about it before. When he saw this junior's memorial, he immediately made a decision. Not only did he approve this junior's memorial, he even personally brought some aids to Yaotai Mountain. Xiao Hua smiled. So Xiao Jun is also at Yaotai Mountain. That's right, that's right. Shui Ping nodded. When Senior flew over, I was chatting with my monarch's aides and was delayed. When I saw Senior's face, I didn't dare to approach. Later, when I saw a nascent soul Senior, I had to be courteous to Senior. Only then did I muster the courage to come over. If Senior is willing, I'll invite my monarch to pay you a visit. Xiao Hua's heart stirred as he asked. You told the county governor of Butian Commandery about Longevity Town, right? That's right. I have nothing to hide. Shueping nodded. Then, have you told your monarch about this old man's visit today? Junior wouldn't dare. Longevity Town's matters are Junior's own. Junior naturally dares to speak. But seniors matter. I dare not speak rashly without senior's approval. Shueping immediately said in a panic. Xiaohua nodded. That's good. You don't need to tell others about this old man's matters. If this old man is interested, he can come and find you. Yes, this Junior understands. Shueping hastily stood up, knowing that Xiaohua was about to send him off. However, when he stood up, he still didn't forget to say, Senior, if you have the time, this Junior would like to invite His Majesty to meet you. Although this Junior hasn't met His Majesty much, I have a good relationship with His Majesty's aides. All the advisors know the monarch very well. Their reputation towards the monarch is extremely good. Xiaohua frowned and said with a smile that was not a smile. Shueping, are you just here to be the Buddhist sect's lobbyist? Oh, please forgive me, Senior. Shueping hastily shut his mouth and said with a smile. This Junior is used to speaking these days, so I just said it in passing. This is my message talisman. If Senior returns from the Yaotai gathering with a full load, this Junior will come and congratulate Senior. With that said, Shueping carefully took out a message talisman and handed it to Xiaohua, looking at him pitifully. It seemed that he was still worried when Xiaohua said that he would look for him when he had the time. Xiaohua reached out to take it without any displeasure on his face. Only then did Shueping feel relieved. He looked around and said, Senior is already a nascent soul cultivator. Why don't you have a boy to serve you? If Senior needs one, can this Junior send a few over? There's no need for that. Xiaohua was somewhat speechless. He waved his hand and said, I'm just here to take a stroll around Yaotai Mountain. Why would I need a boy to serve me? Those who came with me earlier were also people I met along the way. They can't be considered as disciples. Senior is really amiable and approachable. Shueping sighed. If this Junior cultivates to the nascent soul realm, I'll definitely have someone to rely on like perfected Yuanqing. This is something that a nascent soul senior should enjoy. It won't be too late to talk about it after you cultivate to the nascent soul realm. Xiaohua said with a smile, and then walked to see him off. How could Shueping dare to let Xiaohua see him off? He hurriedly bowed and said, Senior, please wait. This Junior doesn't dare to trouble you, Senior Xiao. Let this Junior see this fellow Taoist off. With that said, Changyu quickly walked out of the quiet room and said eagerly, I'm Changyu. Fellow Taoist, this way please. Xiaohua nodded and stopped in his tracks. Shueping bowed again and smiled at Changyu before following him out of the palace. Looking at Shueping's back, Xiaohua frowned slightly. He was somewhat surprised by Shueping's visit, but he was even more puzzled by Xiao Jun's situation. Xiaohua returned to the jade table and sat down. Not long after, Changyu turned around and Xiaohua said loudly, All of you come out and follow me to this palace. Don't cultivate in seclusion. Otherwise, wouldn't it be the same as a cave? With that said, he waved his hand and took out some spirit fruits and spirit wine, placing them on 3 jade tables. Changyu blinked and bowed. Thank you, Senior Xiao. Today, I've benefited from your presence. Hearing Xiaohua's summons, Wu Tianxin and Zhu Qingli hurriedly came out as well. They were happy to see the spirit fruits and other things. After thanking him, they sat down and ate and drank while chatting in a reserved manner. Xiaohua also casually said a few words before asking, Changyu, do you know of the Chanyang country in Liang province? Senior, Liang province is very far from Qing province. This Junior has never heard of it. Changyu was about to drink when he hurriedly put down the wine cup and answered respectfully. Previously, Xiaohua did not hide his conversation with Shueping from the 3 of them. Therefore Xiaohua said again, This Shueping is someone I knew in the past. I heard from him that he's currently serving as a county governor in the Chanyang country, which was founded by a Buddhist sect. I don't understand. Is the monarch of this Chanyang country really using our Taoist cultivators? Or does he really have the intention to develop his country and seek benefits for his citizens? No matter what, he's using our Taoist cultivators to work for his Buddhist sect. Wu Tianxin stood up without hesitation and said, There aren't many good people in the Buddhist sect. On the surface, they're benevolent, abstain from meat and pray to Buddha. They don't get close to women, but in reality, how many men can tolerate their 10 precepts? This disciple has cultivated for so many years, but I can only abstain from 9 of the 10 precepts. Xiaohua knew Wu Tianxin's personality, and did not find it strange. He smiled and said, "Which precepts are so powerful? Even great cultivator Wu can't abide by them." Lust precepts. Lust is emptiness, emptiness is lust. It's all nonsense. Wu Tianxin smiled and said, "This lust precepts are men's lust tribulation. I don't think any man can avoid it." "Old Wu, you've drunk too much." Zhu Qingli stole a glance at Xiaohua and hurriedly chided, "Don't violate your precepts in front of senior." Wu Tianxin shuddered and shrank his neck. He hurriedly sat down and took a spirit fruit to chew. Actually, it might not be as serious as fellow Taoists, Wu said. Chang Yu smiled and said, "I've seen some Buddhist sect monks who say one thing and mean another. Similarly, I've seen even more Buddhist sect experts who are sincere towards Buddhism and treat others with sincerity." With fellow Taoist Shueping's cultivation, if not for the fact that the single Liang kingdom really attracted him, he might not have stayed behind, and even more so, he wouldn't have taken the initiative to come to Yaotai Mountain. It's certain that the single Liang kingdom's monarch is using Taoist cultivators, but we can't rule out the fact that this monarch is indeed ambitious. At this point, Chang Yu looked at Xiaohua again and said, "If senior is interested, you'll know when you meet him. Otherwise, senior can ride a Pegasus to the single Liang kingdom to take a look. If not, junior and the others can also do it for you." "Haha, there's no need for that." Xiaohua waved his hand. "I'm just curious. If I have time, I'll go take a look myself." Zhu Qingli seemed to want to say something, but before he could speak, Xiaohua raised his head and looked outside the palace. He said, "Chang Yu, go take a look. There seems to be someone outside again." "Yes, senior." Chang Yu was very happy. He hurriedly got up and walked quickly to the palace door. Zhu Qingli and Wu Tianxin were slightly stunned. After all, their cultivation levels were relatively low. If there was anything, they should be called. Zhu Qingli even had a look of regret on his face. Not long after, Chang Yu brought a boy with red lips and white teeth in a clean Taoist robe in. He said respectfully, Senior Hong Songzi sent an invitation card to invite you to a banquet. Junior Qing Mu greets perfected Xiao. The boy walks in front of Xiaohua and respectfully raises his hands. In his hands is a diamond-shaped crystal object. Inside it is flashing a green and red brilliance. It looks very extraordinary. The boy says, "Junior is under the order of my family's Taoist to invite Taoist to Taoist Huoda's banquet." Xiaohua slightly nodded and reached out to take the crystal object. He slightly used his zhenyuan and saw the crystal overflowing with brilliance. The green and red brilliance respectively gathered in 2 parts of the crystal. Soon after, the brilliance rushed out of the crystal and swam in front of Xiaohua's eyes like a shuttle used to weave cloth. A moment later, a gorgeous invitation card appeared. The characters seemed to come alive and made a sound. It was Hong Songzi's voice. "Perfected Xiao, I originally planned to invite fellow Taoists to my Immortal's Cave for a chat a few days ago. However, in these few days, fellow Taoists from various provinces have come to Yaotai Mountain. This is really beyond my expectations. Today, I just received Perfected Huoda's invitation. I thought that I might as well go together. If fellow Taoist has the time, you can ask Qing Mu to bring fellow Taoist here. I will wait in my Immortal's Cave." The voice drifted in the palace. The green and red brilliance gradually disappeared. The crystal object also turned into powder. Xiaohua looked at Qing Mu standing respectfully. He turned his head and sent a sound transmission to Chang Yu. "Who is this perfected Huoda?" Chapter 3583. Chang Yu's face revealed astonishment and he hastily replied, "Senior, this Huoda Taoist is the state teacher of Ji Province's Lihua Nation. It's said that he's already cultivated to the late stage of nascent soul, and his strength has reached the lower 5th level. This Lihua Nation was originally founded by Huoda Taoist, and its national strength is very strong. It already has a history of several thousand years in Ji Province, so Huoda Taoist's name is also very well known. Junior also heard that Huoda Taoist has a very deep friendship with the Confucian school of Mo. En Qingmu, Xiaohua heard and said. Does what a Taoist only invite nascent soul cultivators to his banquet? Senior, please no. Qingmu respectfully replied. What a Taoist's invitation didn't say so, but there are at least several hundred Taoist cultivators coming to Yaotai Mountain, if not thousands. What a Taoist can't invite them all. Only nascent soul seniors can go. However, Qingmu raised his eyes to look at Changyu's group of 3 and said with slight hesitation, Senior, if you want to bring your sect's disciples, it should be possible. Oh, okay. Xiaohua nodded and waved his hand. You lead the way. Changyu, you and the others follow me to the banquet. Yes, Senior Xiao, please. Qingmu bowed and took a few steps forward to lead the way. Changyu and the others were overjoyed. They definitely didn't expect Xiaohua to bring them to the banquet. Changyu and the others understood that being able to meet a nascent soul cultivator was a fated chance. Just like the 3 of them, there was a huge difference between before and after meeting Xiaohua. A nascent soul cultivator could casually give them some pointers and some rewards, allowing them to take a few more steps on the arduous path of cultivation. Changyu looked further ahead than Wu Tianxin and Zhu Qingli, so he didn't urgently look for Xiaohua and instead waited for an opportunity. Wasn't Xiaohua's words a kind of repayment? Senior, please. Changyu didn't dare to overstep and bowed to invite Xiaohua to go first. And Xiaohua knew that at this time, he wouldn't be as casual as he was before arriving at Yaotai Mountain. He nodded slightly and walked forward. Hong Songzi's palace was quite far from Xiaohua's. Greenwood Child walked out of the palace gate and gave Xiaohua a slight smile. Clouds appeared under his feet, and he flew towards the other side of Yaotai Mountain. Xiaohua didn't use the magic cloud technique. Instead, he used a simple Taoist flying technique to follow behind Qingmu. Now the sky was gradually darkening. Many palaces and pavilions were abnormally bright in the dark. Xiaohua glanced around and couldn't help but be shocked. It was really as Qingmu said. Many palaces were already lit up, and even more pavilions were resplendent outside the palaces. The Tao cultivators of the hidden immortal continent were far more numerous than what Xiaohua had expected. As Xiaohua flew through the air, many divine senses swept over. However, Xiaohua had just shown his outstanding strength, and his reputation wasn't that great. The strength he displayed seemed to be just so. Therefore, the divine senses swept over and then retracted. They didn't take Xiaohua seriously. Another moment later, a divine sense swept over. Once it touched Xiaohua, it immediately withdrew. Then 3 rainbow-colored lights streaked across the sky from afar. Unexpectedly, it was Hong Songzi, Taoist Yuan Qing and another fat nascent soul cultivator, who came to welcome them. From afar, Hong Songzi smiled and said, Taoist Master Xiao, I'm really sorry to disturb your quiet cultivation. Xiaohua urged his figure, and instantly passed by Qingmu. He cupped his hands and said, Fellow Taoist, I know that fellow Taoist has been busy these past few days. That's why I didn't dare to disturb you. Now that fellow Taoist has invited me, I couldn't ask for more. Xiaohua greets fellow Taoists. Come Hai Hongzi. This is Taoist Master Xiaohua of the Black Cloud Ridge that I mentioned to you before. Hong Songzi smiled and returned the greeting. He pulled the fat cultivator beside him and said. Unexpectedly, the fat cultivator slightly frowned. He looked at Xiaohua from head to toe. He wasn't as affectionate as Hong Songzi thought. Instead, he casually raised his hand and said, I'm Hai Hongzi. Greetings fellow Taoist Xiao. He Taoist Yuan Qing laughed and said, Hai Hongzi, fellow Taoist Xiao is a Taoist who doesn't reveal his true strength. Don't look at him just because he only revealed the strength of a third-grade origin energy. You have to look carefully. Don't be fooled by his false appearance. That day, this old man didn't pay attention to it. If it wasn't for fellow Taoist Hong Songzi's attentiveness, we would have lost a great help in the future. Xiaohua naturally already sensed that Hai Hongzi was checking his cultivation. However, he was used to hiding his strength. Now that he heard Taoist Yuan Qing mention it, although he didn't say that he should reveal it, if he continued to hide it, it would be hypocritical. Therefore, Xiaohua lightly patted the top of his head. He slightly released the pressure of a middle nascent soul stage cultivator. Qingmu, Changyu and the others at the side immediately felt that it was difficult to breathe. A kind of mountain-like pressure directly broke into their hearts. Fellow Taoist Xiao has actually entered the middle of the 4th grade origin energy? Hai Hongzi was shocked. He looked at Xiaohua up and down in disbelief. He said in surprise, fellow Taoist with such strength. How come this old man doesn't know anything about it? This Xiao has always been in secluded meditation. I didn't want to attract the attention of a Confucian cultivator. Xiaohua had already thought of an excuse. Moreover, previously I had a big battle with a Confucian cultivator. My cultivation has only just recovered. It would be strange if fellow Taoist Hai Hongzi knew about it. So that's how it is. I understand. Hai Hongzi laughed. He looked at Taoist Yuanqing and said, it seems that fellow Taoist Xiao and fellow Taoist Yuanqing are both thinking about taking action. Don't mention this old man. Taoist Yuanqing hurriedly waved his hand. This old man is not interested in the imperial preceptor's lot, however. When he said that, Taoist Yuanqing's face became somewhat unnatural. He looked at Hong Songzi, but Hong Songzi said with a smile, it's nothing. Since fellow Taoist Xiao came to participate in the Jade Pavilion gathering, whether it's for the imperial preceptor's lot or for other reasons, he's still a member of our Tao sect. Moreover, when we saw fellow Taoist Xiao, we had a feeling that he was an old friend. This is also fate. Since we're going to ask for help, we naturally have to ask for a virtuous cultivator like fellow Taoist Xiao. Hearing this, how could Xiaohua not know? He hurriedly waved his hand and said, this Xiao doesn't dare to call himself a virtuous cultivator. However, this Xiao can tell you all that this Xiao's purpose is the imperial preceptor's lot. This Xiao isn't interested in any other treasures. Hai Hongzi heard this and couldn't help but laugh. Fellow Taoist Xiao, you don't have to say it so early. The imperial preceptor's lot isn't that rare. There's only one chance every 10 years. It's only a matter of time before nascent soul cultivators like you and me get the imperial preceptor's lot. However, this treasure isn't available every time. What do you mean, fellow Taoist Hai Hongzi? Xiaohua was somewhat puzzled. However, Hong Songzi looked at the 3 golden core cultivators behind Xiaohua and said, we still don't know if this matter is true or not. We're just discussing it. We'll have an answer at Taoist Huada's banquet. It won't be too late for me to tell you then. Fellow Taoist Xiao, these 3, are they your disciples? Oh, they're not this old man's disciples. Xiaohua said with a smile. We met them on the road. Since it's fate, we'll bring them along. If fellow Taoist feels it's inconvenient, this old man will let them return. That won't be necessary. I also want to bring a few disciples. There's no harm in bringing them along. Hong Songzi waved his hand and transmitted a few words to the people below. From the palace below him, a dozen golden core cultivators flew out. When these cultivators arrived in front of Xiaohua, they all bowed and greeted him, saying that they had seen Senior Xiao. Xiaohua waved his hand in return. Chang Yu and the others also hurried over to greet him. The 2 groups of cultivators cooperated and flew towards the Yaotai Mountains cave under Hong Songzi's lead. Seeing that Hong Songzi had already passed the area where the palace was located and was about to enter the cave, Xiaohua was puzzled. He thought to himself, could it be that this so-called Taoist Huada is in the cave's quiet room? However, when he followed Hong Songzi into the cave, they kept flying inside and passed by a lot of quiet rooms. At the same time, more than a dozen nascent soul cultivators flew out of the quiet rooms and nodded slightly to Xiaohua and the others before flying in the same direction. Xiaohua knew that his thoughts weren't wrong. However, when he flew into the depths of the cave, he saw a huge palace door open. In front of the palace door stood a lot of boys welcoming guests. He knew that he still underestimated this Taoist Huada. He actually had an immortal's cave in the Yaotai Mountain that was different from the others. Xiaohua and the others landed in front of the palace door. Naturally, a boy hurriedly came forward and bowed to greet them. After asking for their names, he immediately led them into the palace. The palace was huge, similar to the immortal's cave of an ordinary nascent soul cultivator. Now thick candles were hung all over the palace, brightening the entire palace. The palace's layout could be considered exquisite. Various kinds of curtains were hung between the walls and the pillars. The fist-sized pearls on them shone brightly under the candles. However, even Xiaohua, a cultivator who didn't pay attention to luxury, felt that although this palace was much more luxurious than the palaces outside, it still didn't match Daoist Huoda's identity as a nascent soul cultivator. There were a lot of jade tables placed in the palace. Although they seemed somewhat disorderly, they were very orderly. No matter which jade table the cultivator sat on, they would feel that they were very close to the jade table at the head. There wasn't any feeling of favoritism. At this moment, there were a lot of cultivators sitting inside the palace. Some were tall, some were short, some were fat, some were thin, some had white hair, some were drooping, and so on. When these cultivators saw Hong Songzi and the others come in, they naturally swept out their divine senses. However, when they saw their faces and cultivations, they withdrew them. Xiaohua now looked like a middle nascent soul cultivator. He wasn't particularly conspicuous among this group of nascent soul cultivators. When Xiaohua entered the main hall, he naturally looked towards the head of the palace. He saw that behind the jade table, there was a boy who wasn't more than 5 feet tall sitting upright. This boy's face was slightly red, and there was a pitch-black flame pattern flickering between his eyebrows. It somewhat resonated with the flickering golden light of the Taoist robe on his body. Moreover, the golden light on the Taoist robe was like a scorching flame, forming a faint layer of distortion around the boy's body. Looking at it with the naked eye, the boy seemed to be in another void. Good Xiaohua secretly stuck out his tongue. This is probably Taoist Huoda. To be able to cultivate true fire to such a degree, he's really amazing. Chapter 3584. Huoda Zhenren closed his eyes and sat there quietly. There wasn't much noise in the palace. There were only whispers. Most of them were transmitting their voices through telepathy. Hong Songzi followed the boy who led the way to the side of a large pillar and sat down. Xiaohua and the others also sat down on the side under the arrangement of the boy standing by the side. Chang Yu and the others were led by the boy to another part of the palace to sit down. Xiaohua sat down and looked around. The cultivators who had opened their eyes slightly nodded their heads. As for the cultivators who were whispering to each other, they continued to whisper about something and ignored Xiaohua. Thus, Xiaohua asked Hong Songzi a few questions, and immediately closed his eyes. He slowly comprehended the cultivation method of scattered nascent soul in his mind. This cultivation method was not only useful for Xian Songzi, but Xiaohua also faintly felt that he could benefit a lot from it. After half an hour, a bell rang. Not far behind Huoda Taoist, a boy with a small hammer hit a fiery red bell that was half a head taller than him. Along with the sound of the bell, the entire palace became silent. Everyone looked up at Taoist Huoda. Of course, the instant the boy's hammer landed on the big bell, Huoda Taoist opened his eyes. 2 scorching flames flashed out from Huoda Taoist's eyes, and then they turned into sparks and disappeared. Huoda Taoist's one red and one black eyes slightly turned, and he looked at all the cultivators in the hall. When his gaze landed on Xiaohua, an indescribable scorching heat came from Xiaohua's skin, as if Huoda Taoist's eyes were releasing true fire. Fellow Taoists, please. Taoist Huoda withdrew his gaze and his eyes returned to their original pitch-black color. He immediately raised his hand and cupped his fist. Thank you for thinking so highly of this old man. After receiving the invitation, you all came to this old man's place for a banquet. Thank you, Taoist Huoda, for giving us this banquet. The cultivators said in unison. Their voices caused the candles in the palace to rapidly flicker. Taoist Huoda laughed and clapped his hands. Every time I hear the voices of so many fellow Taoists, this old man is happy from the bottom of my heart. The rise of my Tao sect is on the shoulders of all of you fellow Taoists. The fire seed of my Tao sect is also in your hearts. Come, bring wine to all of you fellow Taoists. Following Huoda Zhenren's command, the jade table in front of everyone flashed with a lotus-like flame. Within the flame, a sapling raised its head. In just a moment, the sapling grew more than 2 feet above the jade table. At this moment, a strong wind blew through the entire hall. The sapling swayed in the wind. Every time it swayed, a branch would grow out from the sapling. In just a moment, the sapling had turned into several branches, and on each branch was a fist-sized bud that was about to bloom. Fellow Taoists, this is my Li fire fruit, a a specialty of the Li Fire Nation. There is also dry fire wine. Please have a taste. Following Taoist Huda's voice, the flower buds slowly opened to reveal fiery red fruits the size of dates and jade pots the size of fists. Looking at the dates in front of him, Xiaohua was slightly absent-minded. His gaze was also somewhat wandering. Yes, the last time he participated in the nascent soul wine party, it was in Haoming City. That was the wine party of the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain. The 3 of them looked very ugly and their behavior was especially protective. Thinking about how the 3 elders forced him that day and Shueshue's loyalty, and then thinking about how the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain and Shueshue were no longer in this world after more than 100 years, Xiaohua's heart was filled with mixed feelings. Taoist Huda's voice was slightly boastful, not only because he was able to hold such a banquet in this temporary cave, but also because there were only a handful of nascent soul cultivators below the level of Confucian on the hidden immortal continent. Not to mention, these spirit fruits and spirit wine were rare in the eyes of ordinary cultivators. How could Taoist Huda take out so much at once? Seeing the strange expressions in the eyes of the surrounding nascent soul cultivators, whether it was surprise, jealousy, or greed, Taoist Huda was very happy. However, when Huda Taoist waved his hand in the air and flames flickered in his hand, a fiery red jade cup appeared. Inside, a cluster of crimson flames mixed with a black flame flew out. Huda Taoist looked around and was about to speak when he happened to see Xiaohua. Xiaohua's expression was clearly different from the others, but Huda Taoist didn't care. There were many cultivators who were absent-minded today, so he didn't care about Xiaohua. Fellow cultivators, Taoist Huda withdrew his gaze and looked at the jade cup in his hand. He raised his voice. The last time I came to Yaotai Mountain was 1,000 years ago. I still remember that there was snow on that day. It was as big as a banquet. I stepped on the snow to come here. Fellow cultivators thought highly of me and waited in the snow. I was moved. When I saw Grand Master Kong Hongwu, I bluntly told him that the Taoist cultivators and Confucian cultivators of the hidden immortal continent had coexisted for thousands of years. Although all kinds of estrangement in the ancient times caused the current situation, this situation couldn't last long. Our common enemy was the Buddhist sect. Taoist and Confucian cultivators should be friends. Brothers. This so-called Yaotai Mountain gathering actually didn't need to exist. The drawing of the state preceptor every 10 years was simply meaningless. Grand Master Kong's face was ashamed. Although he didn't say anything in front of everyone, he privately held my hand and said, "Fellow Immortal Huda, everything is understood without words. Senior and fellow Immortal are close friends." Ha ha ha. This old guy actually showed off in front of me and called himself a senior. But this old guy really has a good appearance. I can't compare with him. After that day, beyond my expectation, there were more than 400 state preceptors lots in the Yaotai Mountain gathering. Although Grand Master Kong didn't say anything, I faintly felt it in my heart. Senior Huda, a Yuanying cultivator who was a little closer to Taoist Huda, stood up and bowed. He said, "I know about the Yaotai Mountain gathering 1,000 years ago. At that time, I was still a Jindan cultivator, and also came to Yaotai Mountain to join in the fun. I know that in the previous Yaotai Mountain gathering, the number of the state preceptors lots was at most 200. But I didn't expect that it suddenly increased to 400. I was really excited at that time. To tell you the truth, I didn't intend to participate in that year. But I couldn't resist the temptation of the state preceptors lots and rushed to Yaotai Mountain to try my luck. Unfortunately, my cultivation was too shallow and I didn't gain anything in the end. But it wasn't until now that I knew the reason was actually senior. Senior. Alas, I don't know what words to use to express my inner excitement. Come, fellow cultivators, let's all get up and toast Taoist Huda on behalf of the Taoist cultivators of the hidden immortal continent. We thank him for speaking up for us and for his efforts for our Taoist sects." That Yuanying cultivator raised his cup. The other Yuanying cultivators and the Jindan cultivators in the distance all got up and said in unison, "We thank Taoist Huda, hee. This first cup of wine was originally for all of you. But I didn't expect that my words would reveal some secrets." Taoist Huda's small face was smiling like a flower. He raised his wine cup and twirled it. "Good, in that case, Thank you, fellow cultivators. Please today. Speaking up to hear, Taoist Huada's brows slightly wrinkled. His gaze paused at the place where Xiaohua was sitting, and immediately moved away. He continued. It's rare for us to gather together. We must enjoy ourselves to the fullest. After the banquet, we'll take a rest. This old man has brought a lot of good things, which will certainly satisfy all of you fellow cultivators. Fellow cultivator Xiao? Xiaohua was originally sitting not far behind Hong Songzi and the others. He was somewhat absent-minded. Taoist Yuan Qing and the others naturally didn't notice. Seeing Taoist Huada's obvious frown, how could they not understand? They hurriedly turned their heads and immediately saw Xiaohua sitting upright behind the jade table and looking at the flaming wine cup. Oh! Xiaohua was only stunned for a moment. His mind entered the dark side of the space to look at Hong Songzi. Hearing Hong Songzi's call, he immediately woke up. Looking at the surrounding cultivators standing up, he bitterly smiled and waved his hand. The wine cup fell into his hand. But at this moment, a sudden change occurred. That originally crimson jade wine cup touched Xiaohua's palm, and suddenly turned into nothingness. Xiaohua stretched out his hand to grab the cup, but unexpectedly grabbed nothing. An unknown Yuanian cultivator next to him sneered and said loudly, "Many thanks for Taoist Huada's wine. I'm also looking forward to the transaction after the banquet." To Taoist Huada. When that cultivator took the lead, the others all raised their cups and looked at Taoist Huada. Taoist Huada smiled and opened his mouth. A wisp of fire flew out from the wine cup. The fire sparkled in the air with a crimson brilliance. There was actually a faint shadow of a firebird. It flapped its wings a few times and flew into Taoist Huada's mouth. The red light on Taoist Huada's face flashed. When his eyes opened and closed, a wisp of fire also appeared. Immediately after, Taoist Huada smiled and tilted the jade cup in his hand forward. The jade cup was empty. Seeing Taoist Huada drink it in one gulp, everyone raised their cups, or drank it in front of their mouths. Only Xiaohua stood there with a faint smile on his face and watched the others drink. Whether it was Hong Songzi or Taoist Yu Qing, there was helplessness in their eyes. They wanted to help Xiaohua out of the embarrassment, but in front of Taoist Huada, they didn't dare to. They could only smile apologetically at Xiaohua and raise their cups to drink. However, Hai Hongzi shook his head slightly. He had already excluded Xiaohua from the scope of cooperation. After all, today Xiaohua offended Taoist Huada because of a small detail. From this detail, Hai Hongzi could see clearly that Taoist Huada was not very broad-minded. He might even seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Although Xiaohua's strength was similar to his, or even a little stronger, compared with Taoist Huada, he was not just a little bit weaker. After all, one was in the middle stage of Yuanying, and the other was in the late stage of Yuanying. In particular, Taoist Huada had a very good relationship with the Confucian cultivator. This time, he was invited by the Confucian cultivator. Since Xiaohua was going to participate in the Yaotai gathering, it was inevitable that he would fall into the hands of Taoist Huada. If he was mixed with Xiaohua, it was really unwise. Chapter 3585. Hai Hongzi drank a cup of spirit wine along with everyone else. He felt a pure fire elemental energy of heaven and earth suddenly emerge from his stomach and rush straight to his head. Hai Hongzi was overjoyed. He didn't dare to neglect it. Without waiting to sit down cross-legged, he immediately used his cultivation method to refine the fire elemental energy of heaven and earth. At his level of cultivation, ordinary spirit wine could only be used for entertainment. He didn't expect this fire spirit wine to have such an effect. TSK after a while, another nascent soul cultivator sighed with emotion like Hai Hongzi. Fellow Taoist Huada, I have long heard of the fire spirit wine's effect, but I never had the chance to taste it. I didn't expect to encounter it on Yaotai Mountain. To think that fellow Taoist actually let us drink this kind of spirit wine. Alas, this kind of extravagance. I'm afraid only Huada Zhenren on the hidden immortal continent can do it. Xiaohua still stood there quietly. He didn't feel embarrassed at all. He looked at the cultivator who spoke with interest. This cultivator's expression indeed looked very emotional. He didn't have the kind of flattery that he imagined. Looking at the cultivators around him, He waved his hand and picked up a second cup of wine. Some raised their cups to Huada, while others drank it in one gulp. They simply ignored Huada. Thinking back to when Chang Yu and the others were drinking and eating in his palace, Xiaohua somewhat understood that the life of Taoist cultivators below Confucian cultivation was indeed difficult. Fellow Taoist Xianpu's words are too exaggerated. Huada laughed. I'm only at the upper fourth level of elemental energy. There are many Taoist seniors above me. They are much more powerful than me. Fellow Taoist Huada's words are wrong again. I'm not talking about powerful strength. The cultivator named Xianpu shook his head. There are Taoist seniors on the hidden immortal continent. I've heard of many of them. How many of them would stand up for our Taoist cultivators? Now, how many people are as righteous, benevolent, and righteous as fellow Taoist? Huada smiled. He felt very happy in his heart, but he hurriedly waved his hand. Xianpu is the one who is wrong. I don't know what the seniors have done. How can I compare with them? Myli Fire Spirit wine is just rich in elemental energy, but the wine's effect is not strong. How can you get drunk before drinking it? That's right, Taoist Master Xuanpu is really drunk. On the other side of Taoist Huada, another cultivator with an ancient face said, although our Tao sect is in decline, over the years, many of our seniors have died at the hands of Confucian cultivators in order to revive our Tao sect. Fellow Taoist Huada is indeed chivalrous, but compared to these seniors, you're still lacking. When Huada heard this, his expression changed drastically. Although this cultivator had compared him to the senior cultivators of the Tao sect, it didn't seem inappropriate. Furthermore, he was only at the upper stage of the 4th grade of Essence Force. Compared to the 5th and 6th grade of Essence Force, he was indeed much weaker. However, everyone knew that he was on good terms with the Confucian cultivator, and he had even shown off just now. Now that cultivator actually talked about the death of a Taoist senior. Wasn't he clearly not giving him any face? Would he say that he was a lackey of the Confucian cultivators? You. Who are you? Taoist Huada naturally wouldn't speak. Taoist Master Xuanpu frowned and asked, then turned to Taoist Huada, thinking that he would recognize this person. This old man is Taoist Master Qing Su. A nameless person. The cultivator's tone was still indifferent. I'm currently residing in Yong Province's Great Song Mountain. I'm merely a carefree person with no connection to the Confucian cultivators. It's no wonder that you two fellow Taoists don't recognize me. Taoist Huada's expression froze, and the flames around his body flickered. He asked with a cold voice, Taoist Master Qing Su, what do you mean by no connection to the Confucian cultivators? Could it be that this old man is wrong in asking for the death of a Tao sect disciple? Could it be that all the Tao sect cultivators under the heavens can't associate with the Confucian cultivators? At this moment, everyone had already noticed this, and many of them put down their wine cups. Xiaohua looked at the 3 people in the distance and faintly smiled. He very naturally sat down. Although there were some spirit wine and spirit fruits in front of him, he didn't even look at them and only raised his head thoughtfully. Seeing someone sit down, the nearby people also sat down. The previously noisy cave suddenly became quiet. Even the children brought by Taoist Huada in the distance were stunned and somewhat at a loss. Taoist Master Qing Su looked around and very calmly raised the wine cup in his hand. He said with a smile, fellow Taoists, this old man's words actually don't mean anything. Whether it is fellow Taoist Huada, fellow Taoists, or even the Tao sect ancestors this old man spoke of, they are all Tao sect disciples. The identity of Tao sect disciples in the hidden immortal continent is very awkward. Fellow Taoists, if you want to cultivate further, you have to take charge of a country. Perhaps you didn't care about the imperial teacher's lot, but you also came here for the scattered treasures of the Yaotai Mountain. Don't forget, not to mention the imperial teacher's lot. Even these treasures were all given by the Confucian cultivators. If it weren't for the Confucian cultivators' coercion, would our Tao sect cultivators be like this? Of course, fellow Taoist Huada's heart to protect our Tao sect disciples is obvious to all. This old man also admires you in my heart. This old man just means to remind fellow Taoists that those who are given alms will never be able to stand on their own feet. Those who are raised in captivity will never be able to fly high. when we are struggling at death's door. Don't forget that these miserable years were exchanged by our Tao sect ancestors with their lives, blood, and forceful means. The entire cave was silent. No one knew how to respond. Come, fellow Taoists. Today we borrow fellow Taoist Huada's wine to worship the ancestors of Tao sect. Worship the ancestors who were not afraid of oppression for the rise of our Tao sect. Taoist Master Qing Su raised his hand and drank the spirit wine. Then he threw the wine cup on the ground and laughed. Alas, it's a joke that there are thousands of people in this cave. The Tao sect has no lofty aspirations, no hot blood in their hearts. What about the nascent soul in their chests? This old man disdains to be associated with them. With that, Taoist Master Qing Su turned into a green rainbow and rushed out of the cave. Taoist Huada's face changed greatly. Taoist Xuanpu's face changed greatly. Even Xiaohua and the others' faces changed greatly. Everyone knew that this was Yaotai Mountain, the location of the Yaotai meeting. Although there were Tao sect disciples in this cave, who knew if there were any Confucian spies? Even Xiaohua, who could erect a blood stele in the Bronze Pillar country, would have to think twice before personally declaring that he wanted to open the Fortune Gate and establish the Tao Gate. Stop! Taoist Xuanpu was shocked. He waved his hand and was about to scold Taoist Master Qing Su. However, Taoist Huada raised his head, and a faint ring of fire rushed into the air and blocked Taoist Xuanpu's spell. He shook his head slightly and said, "Let him go. Everyone has their own aspirations. There's no need to force them. This old man has a clear conscience and can face the Tao sect ancestors directly. I don't care what others say." But Taoist Xuanpu slightly bit his lips. He still wanted to say something but swallowed it back down. He slowly sat down and waved his hand. A fiery date fell into his hand and took a bite. He closed his eyes and tasted it. Fellow Taoist Huada looked around and said with a smile, "There's no need to pay attention to him. This old man has encountered countless misunderstandings in the past thousands of years. Today's misunderstandings don't make a difference. Don't let this unpleasant matter disturb everyone's mood." That's right. Senior Huada said there's no need to pay attention to others. This fellow Taoist is probably jealous of Senior's friends all over the world. A golden core cultivator in the distance actually stood up and shouted, Many thanks. Taoist Huada actually expressed his thanks and nodded slightly to that golden core cultivator. Immediately, some tactful cultivators stood up and toasted him. There were also some cultivators who whispered. Before long, the unpleasant matter at the beginning of the banquet was almost forgotten. Fellow Taoist Xiao was a bit reckless earlier, seeing that Taoist Huada didn't notice the commotion in the cave. Hong Songzi whispered to Xiaohua, "Even if fellow Taoist doesn't like Taoist Huada, you still have to give him face." Fortunately, there was Taoist Qing Su's disturbance. Otherwise, Taoist Huada would really remember fellow Taoist. How about this? When we're free later, we'll go toast Taoist Huada as an apology. Xiaohua smiled and nodded slightly. Today, he was the one who was rude first. Toasting with him was nothing. Unfortunately, Hong Songzi and Xiaohua still didn't expect that before they started to move, Taoist Huada's side moved again. They heard a slightly fat cultivator say, "Fellow Taoist Huada, you haven't come here for 1,000 years. This old man also hasn't seen fellow Taoist for several hundred years. We've endured humiliation for so many years, and the younger generation of hidden immortal continent has also risen. To be honest, not to mention the Golden Core disciples who came to this banquet today, I'm also not familiar with many of these nascent soul cultivators. Why don't we let them report their names one by one? First, everyone knows each other. Second, it'll be easier to take care of each other in the future." Good. Taoist Huada nodded and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Jin Su is right. Although this old man has sent an invitation, as long as you're a nascent soul cultivator of my Tao sect, you can come to the banquet. Since everyone is a Tao sect disciple, it's reasonable to know each other." With that, Taoist Huada raised his head with a smile, but the direction he was looking at was not Xiaohua. "Junior Zhangcheng, from the Chu Yun Pavilion in Yan Province. I just had a baby 200 years ago. Now my Taoist name is Ji Qingzi." Following Taoist Huada's gaze, a very handsome cultivator stood up, holding a glass of wine in his hand, and said respectfully, That year, Junior also met Senior Huda on Yaotai Mountain. I was also deeply impressed by Senior's demeanor. Now that Junior has also cultivated to the nascent soul stage, I dare not say what I can do for my Dao sect. I only hope that Junior can be lucky enough to win the lot of the state preceptor and open a paradise for my Dao sect disciples. Junior salutes Senior Huda. With that, Ji Qingzi raised his glass and drank it. Good. The old man is very happy that the little boy has become a great talent. Daoist Huda was overjoyed. He raised his glass and drank it, and said, "This old man also wishes you success and become a pillar of my Dao sect." Chapter 3586. Soon after, a few nascent soul cultivators stood up and respectfully reported their names. They complimented Daoist Huda and offered him a cup of spirit wine. Daoist Huda seemed to be very happy and didn't refuse anyone. He downed all the cups in one go. After a few cups, Fire Virtue Daoist's face was slightly red, as if he couldn't handle the alcohol. When Fire Virtue Daoist's gaze fell on Xiaohua, his eyes showed a trace of a smile. He unexpectedly raised his hand and asked, "Fellow Daoist, you really look unfamiliar. May I know which cave you're cultivating in?" "I am Xiaohua." Xiaohua stood up and said, "I'm currently cultivating in Yu Province's Black Wind Ridge." Yu Province? Fire Virtue Daoist slightly tilted his head and frowned. "I don't have many opportunities to go to Yu Province. I remember that 600 years ago, I was invited by fellow Daoist Zhenhong to his fish sword cave. At that time, fellow Daoist Zhenhong also invited fellow Daoists to Yu Province to welcome me. I don't seem to have seen fellow Daoists before." And indeed. Xiaohua nodded. "I've also never seen fellow Daoist Huda." After saying that, Xiaohua was about to sit down. And the fat nascent soul cultivator frowned and said unhappily, "Xiaohua, fellow Daoist Huda is guiding the younger generation. Although you're not familiar with fellow Daoist Huda, now that you've met him, it's inevitable that you won't have time to rely on fellow Daoist Huda in the future. Since you're here, there's no reason not to toast fellow Daoist Huda, right? Others have already toasted, but you didn't. Not to mention that your etiquette is not complete. How will others see you?" Xiaohua smiled and pointed at the table in front of him. He asked, "Then fellow Daoist, please help me see which cup of wine I should toast?" Naturally, it's the wine of apology. The cultivator next to him was unhappy, as if he was covering for Xiaohua. He said, "Others all have one cup, you can toast 3 cups. It's also an apology for your rudeness." He, fellow Daoist Xiaohong Songzi, who was at the side, hurriedly took his wine cup and jade pot, and said with a smile, "You're not familiar with the other fellow Daoists, so how about this humble Daoist toast with you?" Xiaohua was also unable to discern the true intentions of that slightly plump cultivator. However, since Hong Songzi had stood up, it wouldn't be good for him to embarrass him. He nodded and said, "Since that's the case, I'll have to trouble fellow Daoist." With that, Xiaohua was about to leave, but at this moment, Daoist Huda let out a cold snort. The entire cave became a lot colder. He slowly said, "This old man naturally dares to drink other people's wine. However, this old man doesn't dare to drink fellow Immortal Zhao's wine." Fellow Immortal? Daoist Huda's words shocked all the cultivators attending the banquet. After all, Daoist cultivators usually addressed each other as fellow Daoist. Fellow Immortal was usually addressed by Confucian cultivators, Daoist cultivators, or Buddhist cultivators. Could it be that this Xiaohua isn't a Dao cultivator? In an instant, everyone's eyes were filled with resentment. All of their divine senses swept towards Xiaohua, as if they wanted to see through Xiaohua's true colors. Xiaohua was stunned. He raised his head and stared at Daoist Huda for a moment. He frowned and said, "Daoist Huda, what do you mean by this?" "Nothing." Daoist Huda raised his hand and poured another mouthful of dark red wine into his mouth. His slightly red face became even redder. Daoist Huda opened his mouth and blew out a small flame. He let out a long breath and said, "Although this old man rarely goes to Yu Province, I'm quite familiar with Yuzhou's nascent soul cultivators and late gold core cultivators. After fellow Daoist Zhenhong died, he sent this old man a secret talisman and mentioned the methods of Confucian cultivators. He suspected that the Immortal Palace was training Taoist cultivators somewhere in Yu Province. This plan has been carried out for tens of thousands of years, but for various reasons, it hasn't been successful. After this old man received the secret talisman, I investigated it but couldn't find anything. However, after seeing fellow Immortal Xiao today, this old man suddenly became vigilant. Ah, he's a Confucian cultivator's spy? Several people near Xiaohua were shocked. Even Hong Songzi and Taoist Yuanqing's expression changed. Several people hurriedly retreated, as if they were afraid of coming into contact with Xiaohua. Xiaohua sneered. The hidden immortal continent is vast. Yu Province is one of the 9 provinces. There are many cultivators in Yu Province. Do you know them all? Have you seen Taoist Master Qingsu from before? At this point, how could Xiaohua not know what Taoist Huada was thinking? Taoist Huada didn't care about his earliest rudeness. After all, this was Taoist Huada's banquet. No matter what, he had to have a bearing. Taoist Master Qingsu didn't care about Taoist Huada's face and revealed some secrets. Moreover, these secrets seemed to be true. It was inconvenient for Taoist Huada to make a move. He didn't even have the ability to stop Taoist Master Qingsu from leaving. Taoist Huada's face and prestige had been damaged a lot. Although no one would talk loudly at this banquet, there would be sound transmissions. Afterwards, discussions and rumors would appear. This had an extremely bad influence on Taoist Huada. If Taoist Huada wanted to save this face, he had to do it before the banquet. Xiaohua, this originally indifferent and impolite cultivator, became the target of Taoist Huada to kill the chicken to scare the monkey. As for Taoist Huada's blushing face, perhaps it was a kind of backup plan. If Xiaohua had some background, he could use drunkenness as a cover. Others might somewhat understand, but Taoist Huada's words were very reasonable. Looking at the cultivators in the Immortal's Cave, which one of them didn't call their friends? Which one of them didn't greet the cultivators in the Immortal's Cave? Which one of them sat down and stared blankly like Xiaohua? Even Hong Songzi was very hesitant at this time. He was also suspicious. Xiaohua was a gentleman. Naturally, he wouldn't point out Taoist Huada's filthy heart in front of everyone. He could only beat around the bush and point out Taoist Master Qingsu, telling Taoist Huada not to bully people too much. Unfortunately, Taoist Huada sneered. A little junior dares to climb up to a late Yuanying stage senior? That Taoist Master Qingsu is 1 step away from the 5th level of Yuanqi. How could he be a Confucian cultivator's spy? You have no background. It's like you jumped out of a stone. If I don't suspect you, how can I suspect Taoist Master Qingsu? Taoist Yufeng, you're the state preceptor of Liao State in Yu Province. You should be familiar with all the Taoist cultivators in Yu Province. Have you seen this Xiaohua? Or have you heard of him? Following Taoist Huada's greeting, a thin early Yuanying stage cultivator hastily stood up. He looked Xiaohua up and down, then shook his head and said, "The Taoist cultivators in my Yu province can't compare to other provinces. We've always been very few. When Senior Zhenhong was alive, there were only 37 Yuanying cultivators. After Senior Zhenhong fell, there were only 36. I was the youngest. I have never heard of him. Moreover, in the past 300 years, there hasn't been a Taoist cultivator's celestial phenomenon of pregnancy. This Xiaohua, I have indeed never seen him before." "What else do you have to say?" Taoist Huada said with a smile. "Although I'm very familiar with the Confucian cultivator Kong Honggu, it's also an improper scheme. I've endured humiliation for the sake of my Confucian cultivator. How can I be like you? Although I'm a Taoist cultivator, my heart is that of a Confucian cultivator." Xiaohua narrowed his eyes. He looked at Taoist Huada, and then at the so-called Taoist Yufeng. He said faintly, "Taoist Huada, others might be interested in what you're thinking, but I don't want to know. I'm thinking you don't know, and you can't possibly know. With your background, I'm afraid. Everyone knows what I'm thinking. If I were a Confucian cultivator, you would have already made your move, right? Why say so much? Oh, I'm wrong. If I were a Confucian cultivator, you would have already licked my toes." Bastard. Taoist Huada was furious. The flames around his body flourished, and a late nascent soul cultivator's pressure soared into the sky. In particular, a nascent soul hand that was several zhang in size slapped out from the top of Taoist Huoda's head. The nascent soul hand was as solid as jade, and within it, there were faint traces of fire. As soon as it appeared, it carried a pressure that enveloped Xiaohua for several zhang. Not to mention Xiaohua, even the hesitant Hong Songzi, Taoist Yuan Qing, and the other nascent soul cultivators were all trembling. Several early nascent soul cultivators' legs were trembling, and they hurriedly released their pressure to resist with all their might. Xiaohua's eyes also flashed with flames. The instant the flames around Taoist Huoda's body flickered, Xiaohua's heart was slightly moved. He was currently cultivating the 5 Qis unifications, and the crimson heart of heaven corresponded to the fire Qi. A cultivator's heart contained fire. Xiaohua also experienced the test of the fire Qi in the 5 brocade cloud painting. If Xiaohua stimulated the fire Qi at this moment, and then attacked with external fire, Xiaohua could imagine Taoist Huoda's sorry state. Xiaohua even believed that his pincer attack would cause Taoist Huoda to burn himself. However, this thought only lasted for a moment. Xiaohua's use of a Confucian cultivator's technique would make him lose his tongue. Moreover, Taoist Huoda was a Taoist nascent soul cultivator. If he killed Taoist Huoda in front of everyone, it would be breaking off relations with the Taoist sect. How could Xiaohua do that? Thus, Xiaohua smiled coldly and slapped his hand on top of his head. Boom, like a surging tide. A pressure comparable to a late nascent soul cultivator was born. At the same time, a golden hand similar in size to Taoist Huoda's nascent soul cultivator's hand appeared out of thin air. It really grabbed the incoming fiery nascent soul cultivator's hand. All the cultivators were stunned. In a moment of astonishment, everyone immediately released their pressure and formed hand seals to prepare to protect themselves. However, they were still too slow. Boom, with a loud sound, the pressure of the 2 cultivators collided first. A huge whirlwind was born from the void. All of a sudden, the table and other things between Xiaohua and Taoist Huoda were swept up. A few cultivators who were caught off guard were also swept up. Not only once. Rumble like a thunderclap, the 2 big hands above the whirlwind clasped together. The fiery hand that made the cultivators feel unparalleled in the world first shone brilliantly, then trembled rapidly. In just a few breaths, it was immediately crushed. It turned into hundreds of firebirds scattered in the air. How is this possible? A group of early nascent soul and mid-nascent soul cultivators in the distance turned pale with fright. The sign of a nascent soul cultivator's defeat is collapse. How could it be crushed? Unless the opponent's strength is far beyond. Could it be? Chapter 3587. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the majestic Xiaohua who was floating in the air. His fire virtue Taoist was even more shocked. When the pressure collided, he sucked in a breath of cold air. His nascent soul trembled slightly. When a powerful magic power surged over, without waiting for him to activate his magic power, that magic power had already crushed his nascent soul's hand. Under the backlash of the magic power, a mouthful of essence blood flowed up. I am Taoist Master Xiao. How can you taint my foundation? Erecting a blood stele in Seven Suns Temple, killing State Preceptor in Black Wind Ridge, killing Prime Minister's father in front of Jade Mountain. If you weren't a friend of Taoist, would you have already offered your head as a sacrifice? Xiaohua arrogantly flew into the air. His gaze was like a knife, sweeping past fire virtue Taoist. Then, without turning into a rainbow, he slowly flew out. Xiaohua flew extremely slowly, but his aura was like a rainbow. Not to mention the nascent soul cultivators were dumbfounded, not daring to speak. Even fire virtue Taoist's gaze flickered. Although his natal magic treasure and nascent soul were already prepared, he still didn't dare to move. That move of Xiaohua's earlier had truly intimidated him. If it wasn't for the fact that Xiaohua was at the upper stage of the 4th grade of essence energy, and had the strength of the lower stage of the 5th grade of essence energy, how could he possibly injure him in one move? He couldn't be sure if Xiaohua would still be able to keep his life after he used his magic treasure. Taoist Master Xiaohua. I know, it's Xiaohua, Bronze Pillar State Xiaohua. Taoist Master Yufeng. who had long been hiding in the distance, suddenly seemed to wake up. He cried out ecstatically, "The world's Taoist sects have long declined. Today the hidden immortal Taoist gate opens. With me, Xiaohua, in the world, you dare to let your disciples be bullied? Such arrogant words are actually true. Could it be? Bronze Pillar State Preceptor and Prime Minister's father were killed by you?" Unfortunately, why would Xiaohua care about them? His figure flew out of the cave and disappeared. "Xiao." Fellow Taoist Xiao Hong Songzi called out, but he hesitated again. If he were to chase after Xiaohua now, he would be going against Taoist Huoda. He knew Taoist Huoda inside out, but he wasn't particularly familiar with Xiaohua. Hong Songzi was helpless. He looked at Taoist Yuan Qing. The two of them exchanged glances, then sat back down. They had brought Xiaohua here, so Taoist Huoda would definitely ask about it. They could only wait and see. "Taoist Master Yufeng, what's going on with this Xiaohua?" Hong Songzi and the others were afraid of Huoda Jinren. Naturally, they were not afraid of Huoda Jinren. Taoist Master Yufeng was somewhat proud and somewhat regretful. He glanced at Taoist Master Huoda, then at the several cultivators who were questioning him. Not daring to offend anyone, he could only smile apologetically and say, "Fellow Taoists, it's actually just some rumors. I can't be sure, so I didn't think of it earlier. The world's Taoist sects have long declined. Today the hidden immortal Taoist gate opens. With me, Xiaohua, in this world, you dare to let your disciples be bullied?" A cultivator with a grave and stern expression said coldly. "Your tone is too big. Even a 7th level essence energy cultivator wouldn't dare to say such a thing. This guy actually dares to talk nonsense?" Speaking up to hear, that cultivator's face suddenly revealed a strange expression. He shouted loudly, "However, I like it. Damn it, how come I didn't think of such a good word? Come, old brother Yifeng, let's drink a big cup of wine. Taoist Master Chu is in a good mood. This old man will accompany you in a cup. This Xiaohua is called Taoist Master Xiao. His arrogance is actually on par with yours." That cultivator called Taoist Master Yifeng scooped up his cup and raised his foot to drink with Taoist Master Chu. Unexpectedly, he didn't put Taoist Master Huoda in his eyes. Then he looked at Taoist Master Yufeng. "Yufeng, quickly tell us everything you know, damn it. It's been a long time since I was this happy." "Yes, two seniors." Taoist Master Yufeng smiled bitterly. In his heart, he somewhat regretted speaking too much just now. At this moment, how could Xiaohua be as arrogant as Taoist Master Chu thought? In his heart, he really was somewhat angry. Ignorant man Xiaohua was still flying in the air, still cursing himself. "You really ruined my important matter." This Xiao still wanted to hide a bit of my cultivation, so as not to let those Confucian cultivators notice. Although the matter of the Copper Pillar State was not small, it was still a matter of the country. Lungqinga and the others were only at the lower 4th level of essence energy. Even if some high-level Confucian cultivators knew, they wouldn't pay too much attention. I only needed to pass this Jade Pavilion gathering, then accumulate strength. After 10 years, 100 years later, those high-level Confucian cultivators would notice me again. I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to do anything to me. But now this damn Taoist Master Huoda completely messed up. In the future, this Xiao will be hunted down by Confucian cultivators. Xiaohua was somewhat upset. Yes, Xiaohua had been carefully hiding his cultivation since he started refining qi, fearing that something would go wrong. This kind of careful action was related to his temperament of not liking to show off, but also related to his situation being different from other cultivators. After so many years, he had almost gotten used to it. Although he set up a blood steal in the Copper Pillar State, he still planned to quietly develop his power like before, without attracting the attention of others. By the time others noticed, he would have fully grown his wings, and others would no longer be able to make things difficult for him. Unfortunately, the development of the matter had already exceeded his expectations. As early as when he killed Lungqinga and obtained the 5 Qis unifications, he had already buried a hidden danger. Now Taoist Master Huoda had only uncovered this hidden danger ahead of time. Forget it, let's take one step at a time. After I take the Imperial Teacher's sign and return to the Black Cloud Ridge, I'll discuss it with Li Xiang. Xiao Hua was somewhat at his wit's end. He could only give up for now. At this time, Xiao Hua had already flown out of the immortal's cave. Turning his head, he didn't see a single cultivator chasing after him. Not even a strand of divine sense. Xiao Hua sneered, urging his figure to fly out of the cave. After flying for a while, Xiao Hua saw many cultivators coming towards him. Some entered secluded rooms, but even more people flew towards a fork in the road. Xiao Hua had always kept a respectful distance from the fork in the road. When he flew in earlier, he didn't look at it. Seeing that it was very lively and his divine sense couldn't penetrate it, Xiao Hua stood still and beckoned to a gold-core old man. "Come here." That gold-core old man was stunned. Although he couldn't see Xiao Hua's cultivation, he could hear that Xiao Hua's tone was somewhat unfriendly. He hurriedly flew over and bowed. "Junior Jin Hong greets Senior. Does Senior have any instructions? What's in front? Why is it so lively?" Xiao Hua pointed at the place Jin Hong wanted to go and asked. Hearing this, Jin Hong hurriedly smiled and said, "Reporting to Senior, in front is the trade fair. Today is the last day. If we want to use it when we enter the Jade Mountain 3 days later, we must find it today. Therefore, most of the fellow Taoists have come today." "Oh, I know. You can go." Xiao Hua nodded and waved his hand, indicating that cultivator to leave. The gold-core cultivator bowed and left. Xiao Hua looked at the cave in the distance and urged his figure to leave. After all, he didn't lack anything now. Those who came to the Jade Mountain were all gold-core and nascent soul cultivators. With their insight, they wouldn't take out something too good for Xiao Hua to take advantage of. Xiao Hua was too lazy to go over. However, when Xiao Hua just flew a few meters, a familiar voice suddenly sounded. "Taoist Xiao, aren't you going to the trade fair to take a look?" Sir Xiao Hua frowned. Standing in the air, he turned his head to look. It was Taoist Qing Su who left Taoist Huada's banquet before him. After seeing clearly, Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, "So it was Taoist Qing Su. I thought Taoist had already left. I didn't expect you to still be here." Taoist Qing Su flew to Xiao Hua's side and said with a smile, "It's just Taoist Huada. I don't fear him. However, it's good that I didn't leave. Otherwise, how could I see Taoist Xiao defeating Taoist Huada with one palm? Taoist Xiao really hid his strength well." I wouldn't dare." Xiao Hua smiled. Taoist Huada was angry out of humiliation, and wanted to vent his anger on others. "I only took the blame for someone else. Ha 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 ha. It's all I's fault. I actually let Taoist Xiao take the blame." Taoist Qing Su laughed heartily. He raised his hand and said, "Taoist Xiao, please. We'll go to the trade fair. You pick something and I'll apologize to you." "No need." Xiao Hua waved his hand. "I also feel uncomfortable looking at Taoist Huada. You taught him a good lesson." "I just casually taught him a lesson." Taoist Xiao, do you feel that I's heart isn't sincere enough? Or do you feel that there isn't anything you like in this trade fair?" Taoist Qing Su said with a smile. "How about I take out my Qianquan bag?" All right. Xiao Hua's heart moved. He thought of something and said with a nod, "Since you're so sincere, I'll accompany you." "Please." Taoist Qing Su smiled and raised his hand. Xiao Hua followed Taoist Qing Su into the immortal cave. While flying, Taoist Qing Su also withdrew his pressure. The others also looked similar to Xiao Hua. After flying into the immortal cave, Xiao Hua glanced around. The entire immortal cave was a bit smaller than Taoist Huada's. However, the advantage was that the two immortal caves were connected together. It was quite spacious. At this moment, there were already quite a few people in the immortal cave. However, these people were still rather sparse. After all, this wasn't a large-scale trade fair. "Taoist Xiao, where should we start?" Taoist Qing Su asked softly as he saw Xiao Hua land. Xiao Hua casually pointed and said, "Let's start from here." "Here?" Taoist Qing Su was slightly stunned. These are items used by Jindan cultivators, right?" "Yes, what's wrong?" "Nothing, please." Taoist Qing Su smiled without saying anything and followed behind Xiao Hua. It was just like the trade fair at midnight in Century City. In just a moment, Taoist Qing Su didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Xiao Hua was like an old lady buying vegetables in the market. He was interested in everything he saw and would ask about it, but he just didn't buy it. How could he be a 4th-level elemental energy grandmaster? However, Daoist Qing Su couldn't tell whether Xiaohua was doing it intentionally or not. He could only restrain his temper and accompany him. Unfortunately, after another incense stick of time, Xiaohua still didn't sell anything. He was really shopping. Chapter 3588. After watching from the side for a long time, Master Qing Su finally couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Master Xiao Yu, if you're interested, just release your divine sense. Not to mention one stall. Even 10 stalls can be seen at once. Why do you have to ask them one by one? If you're not a fish, how can you know the joy of a fish?" Xiaohua disdained. Indeed, he couldn't happily stroll around the trade fair with Master Qing Su. All right, Master Qing Su nodded, and didn't ask any more questions. Xiaohua glanced at Master Qing Su. He also couldn't figure out what this cultivator meant. And when Xiaohua glanced sideways at Daoist Master Qing Su, he saw some jade bottles on the table in front of a golden core cultivator. Below the jade bottles there were a few joints. These bones couldn't be easily seen by divine sense. This was also the reason why Xiaohua carefully checked each stall. "Fellow Daoist, please." Xiaohua walked to the cultivator's table and cupped his hands. That golden core cultivator glanced at Xiaohua and Master Qing Su behind him. He couldn't see through Xiaohua's cultivation. Xiaohua's temperament was gentle like jade, making the cultivator feel that his cultivation was similar to his own. However, Master Qing Su beside Xiaohua was different. Although he couldn't see through his cultivation, Master Qing Su's eyes were like lightning and his aura was like a king. The golden core cultivator immediately felt that Master Qing Su was hiding something. If Master Qing Su was like this, how could Xiaohua in front of him be inferior? That golden core cultivator didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly stood up and bowed. "I don't dare. May I know which item Senior likes?" Xiaohua originally wanted to loosen the reins only to grasp them better. Now this jade bottle didn't need to be looked at. It must be some medicine for injuries. This kind of thing was meaningless to nascent soul cultivators. If Xiaohua asked again, it would only make it more conspicuous. Forget it. Xiaohua reached out and pulled the jade bottle away. He picked up the bones below and asked, "Where did you get this thing? How do you want to exchange it?" "This thing?" The golden core cultivator was stunned. And so was Daoist Master Qing Su. After all, on the golden core cultivator's table, apart from some jade bottles, there were also a few pieces of refining materials. Daoist Master Qing Su did not think that these bones were of any use. The golden core cultivator's face was slightly red as he hurriedly said, "Senior, I picked these up from the reef when I was traveling in the South Sea. When I took out the jade bottle from my small Qianquan bag, I poured them all out and didn't have time to clean them up. If Senior wants it, feel free to take it." "All right." Xiaohua didn't hold back. With a flip of his hand, his knuckles disappeared. Then he raised his hand again and took out a jade bottle. He said, "This is the mysterious Yin pill. It's the best for consolidating one's spiritual sense. It's suitable for golden core cultivators. Many thanks, Senior." The golden core cultivator was overjoyed. He reached out to receive the jade bottle and stammered his thanks. Xiaohua smiled and said, "If you can tell this old man the location of the reef, that would be even better." Of course. The golden core cultivator hurriedly put away the jade bottle. After thinking for a while, he took out a jade pen and wrote something on it. Then he respectfully handed it to Xiaohua. Xiaohua took it and nodded. He put it away and walked to another place. Spiritual Master Qing Su followed for a while. He couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Spiritual Master Xiao, what's the use of these bones?" "Nothing," Xiaohua said indifferently. "This Xiao likes strange things. Who knows if there's some big secret hidden inside." Spiritual Master Qing Su naturally knew that Xiaohua wasn't telling the truth. He smacked his lips and was about to ask more when he saw Xiaohua quicken his pace and rush to another jade table. Xiaohua's gaze once again fell on a very inconspicuous material. After another half an incense stick's worth of time, Xiaohua had visited many stalls and bought many things. Daoist Master Qing Su, who was at the side, saw clearly that Xiaohua was buying things that others didn't want. Even with his own eyes, he couldn't see the purpose of these things. Damn it, this Xiaohua is really strange. Spiritual Master Qing Su muttered. What does he mean? Could it be that these things are all treasures? But why can't this old man see them? Just as Taoist Master Qing Su was thinking, the cave entrance became noisy again. Xiaohua and Taoist Master Qing Su turned to look, and saw that there were actually quite a few nascent soul cultivators at the entrance of the cave. Their faces were filled with excitement as they walked towards the other side of the cave while whispering in low voices. Oh, aren't these cultivators attending the banquet in Spiritual Master Huada's cave? Spiritual Master Qing Su asked curiously. Didn't that guy say that he would hold a trade fair after the banquet? Xiaohua sneered. He wanted to, but I'm afraid he wouldn't have the face to do it again. Hee, it's true. Spiritual Master Qing Su laughed. He looked around and suddenly transmitted his voice. Spiritual Master Xiao, I've been following you for a long time. To be honest, I want to talk to you about something. Oh, so you want to talk about something? Xiaohua smiled and transmitted his voice. This Xiao thought you were going to pay for this Xiao. Hee, paying the bill is not a problem. As long as fellow Taoist Xiao likes it, this one will definitely buy it. Spiritual Master Qing Su smiled. What I said earlier also counts. I don't need you to pay for this Xiao. Xiaohua stopped and looked at Spiritual Master Qing Su. You only need to answer 1 or 2 questions. If it involves secrets, can I choose not to answer? Of course. Xiaohua nodded. But rest assured, fellow Taoist, I won't make things difficult for you. That's good. Fellow Taoist, please speak. Do you know about heavenly soul, earthly soul, and mortal essence? Heavenly soul, earthly soul, and mortal essence. Spiritual Master Qing Su was obviously stunned. He shook his head naturally. I have never heard of it. Oh, then forget it. Xiaohua waved his hand. This thing was one of the things that Xiansongzi used to cultivate his scattered soul. Since Spiritual Master Qing Su didn't know about it, he probably didn't know about the other rare things either. What about the other question? Spiritual Master Qing Su was somewhat unwilling and transmitted his voice again. Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and smiled. The second question is, where are the heavenly soul, earthly soul, and mortal essence? Hee, Spiritual Master Qing Su slapped his forehead and laughed. This old man shouldn't have asked. However, what's the use of this thing? Where did fellow Taoist Xiao learn about it? If this old man knew, perhaps I could help you. Xiaohua raised his foot and walked forward again. He said, if fellow Taoist doesn't know, then forget it. There's no need for fellow Taoist to worry about what this thing is for. Fellow Taoist, perhaps you don't know. Even if I don't, I can help you ask. Even if fellow Taoist wants to know something else, I can still help you. Spiritual Master Qing Su hurriedly transmitted his voice again. Xiaohua didn't understand. He smiled and said, what do you mean, fellow Taoist? Spiritual Master Qing Su also smiled and said, could it be that fellow Taoist Xiao has already forgotten what I said at Spiritual Master Huada's banquet? What did fellow Taoist say at the banquet? Xiaohua looked at Spiritual Master Qing Su thoughtfully, as if he was recalling what Spiritual Master Qing Su said just now. Seeing that Xiaohua was pretending to be deaf and mute, Spiritual Master Qing Su smiled and said, Spiritual Master Xiao, a straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. Let this old man ask you, fellow Taoist, have you met any Taoist seniors above the 5th stage of origin power? Or perhaps fellow Taoist master? Fellow Taoist, there's no need to worry about my master. Xiaohua's tone was somewhat cold. Spiritual Master Xiao, please don't misunderstand. Spiritual Master Qing Su hurriedly explained. I have never doubted fellow Taoist's identity as a Taoist cultivator. Moreover, I also believe that fellow Taoist doesn't have any relationship with Confucian cultivators. What I mean is, fellow Taoist's tone is rather arrogant. You actually dare to say establish a Taoist sect. However, fellow Taoist, don't you feel that your strength is simply insufficient to establish a Taoist sect? Look at the cultivators in this cave. Perhaps each of them isn't fellow Taoist's match, but if they join forces, they're enough to kill fellow Taoist, right? Since that's the case, why don't they dare to establish a Taoist sect? Why do they still want to come to Yaotai Mountain? Xiaohua slightly narrowed his eyes. He seemed to understand what spiritual master Ching Su wanted to say. Fellow Taoist spirit in establishing our Taoist sect is commendable. Moreover, fellow Taoist's cultivation is also truly outstanding. Someone as handsome as fellow Taoist is the hope of our Taoist sect in hidden immortal continent. Seeing that Xiaohua didn't stop him, spiritual master Ching Su transmitted his voice. However, fellow Taoists must understand that reviving the Taoist sect isn't the work of a single person. Thousands upon thousands of Taoist sect disciples sacrifice their lives for the Taoist sect's existence in hidden immortal continent today. It's also because of the Taoist sect's seniors' sacrifice over the past tens of thousands of years that you and I are talking in this cave right now. We Taoist sect cultivators should work together and unite with each other. Only then will we be able to stand out. Unfortunately, the Taoist sect's seniors have all withered away. There aren't many who can protect us anymore. It's time for us to walk in front of others. However, when walking in front of others, we need to have a strategy. We also need to protect ourselves first. For someone like fellow Taoist who speaks arrogant words as soon as he appears, I'm afraid he won't live for long. In I's opinion, it's better for fellow Taoist to find a Taoist sect senior who can protect you as soon as possible. Seeing that spiritual master Ching Su first talked about establishing the Taoist sect, and said that cultivators should unite, Xiaohua agreed from the bottom of his heart. However, when spiritual master Ching Su changed the topic and talked about the protection of the Taoist sect seniors, Xiaohua couldn't help but feel disgusted. Ever since Xiaohua started cultivating, he didn't dare to say that he didn't receive any protection. However, how many of the seniors who cared about him sincerely protected him? Many of them had ulterior motives such as helplessness and affection, and very few of them. Fellow Taoist means, without the seniors' protection, we're helpless? Can we possibly be killed by Confucian cultivators? Xiaohua asked indifferently. Spiritual master Ching Su's growth was different from Xiaohua's, so he naturally didn't understand what Xiaohua was thinking. However, he also heard the other meaning in Xiaohua's tone. Knowing that Xiaohua had misunderstood, he hurriedly waved his hand and said, "That's not the case. If we were all under seniors' protection, we wouldn't have been able to cultivate to the 4th grade of origin energy." Spiritual master Ching Su, if you have something to say, just say it. We've all lived for thousands of years. What haven't we seen? Why beat around the bush? Xiaohua was somewhat impatient. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.